Okay, it says we're live. I'm going to kick off my VPN and Friar. If you can handle the chat. So everybody out there, hopefully you're seeing us. Today is September 25th, 2024. I believe it is around, well, it's lunchtime in Michigan. So whatever that means for the rest of the world, I'm not 100% sure. Today we have a very special guest, Dr. Paula. Let me see it. Let me try again, see if I can talk today. Dr. Paula Koberda. Am I saying your last name correctly?
Yes, Koberda, you're right.
Okay. Okay. So very excited about that. I think Kat is going to be jumping on with us at some point. Paula, rather than try to read and thus butcher a bio, why don't you just tell us about you? And because you have a big bio, a giant list of credentials, and you have an extensive background. So why don't you tell everybody who's listening, or like now or later, what do you do?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the introduction. So, my background is a bit of a mixed bag because I have one foot in Western medicine with my neuroscience background, but also one foot in Eastern medicine with my doctorate in acupuncture and Chinese medicine. So, I started with my bachelor's in psychology, and I've been really interested in how the mind works. Why do we do the things we do? But then that shifted towards Eastern medicine when I started having my own health conditions that I couldn't find any answers for. So I moved on to get my master's in acupuncture and then my doctorate. And in the meantime, I've worked in neuropsychology clinics doing neurofeedback training, which is a way to regulate your brainwave activity without the use of medication. And I also work in peak performance, so working with NFL athletes or actors or celebrities that are already performing well but want to do better. And we utilize a little bit of biohacking in that kind of training.
And that's a lot. That's a lot of different things. I'm curious. So I'm assuming like you've done acupuncture, like you do acupuncture?
So currently, I don't practice with acupuncture because I am 90% remote. However, that is a part of my training to do five element acupuncture. And that is the most traditional type of acupuncture because you'll look at there are different modalities like traditional Chinese medicine, there's Japanese acupuncture, Korean acupuncture. In my studies, they claim that this is the most classical and traditional style. However, since I am mostly remote, what I do right now for my business is I'll do consultations based on Chinese medicine philosophy to guide individuals towards living a healthier life, eating healthier, healthy lifestyles. And I also work for a neuropsychology clinic where I do brainwave analysis. However, acupuncture is in my bag of tricks, just not in the forefront currently.
So did you ever like do it? Like were you ever before you like started getting into other things and started focus, like did you before shifting focus, maybe I'm not saying that correctly. Did you ever do it?
Yeah, that's a good question. In my residency during school, I did have patients that I worked with and I was sticking needles in them. However, once I graduated, that's when I shifted towards doing more of the biohacking as I started working in 40 Years of Zen, which is a meditation retreat in Seattle where we mostly focused on neuroscience and diet. And there was a spin of Chinese medicine in there, but once again, it wasn't the foreground. So currently not practicing putting needles in people. And with that, since it is more invasive, I need licensing in the particular state I want to
Yeah,
be.
okay.
So that
For
adds
sure.
a little bit more to the
Yes,
layers.
that complicates things
Every
really.
state has their own rules. It's
Yes.
really complicated.
The reason why I ask, I'm actually, I have an acupuncture doctor here. I've gotten it numerous times. Actually, the first time I had it done, and when I say I had it done, it was a 2 to 3 week ordeal.
Wow.
But it was shortly before, so I know I've talked about this before on Hi Cat, on some of the calls. I had 23 miscarriages before I ever was able to carry my daughter to term.
Wow.
So in that process, I tried everything to try to, just
Yeah.
get my body to a place where it could keep the pregnancy. And at the same time I was doing it, I upped my vitamin D. And I do think when it comes down to it, that was probably the biggest factor. I read it after I'd already had my daughter. I was still like doing research into trying to figure out like what was the big difference here, because I've tried everything. And
Yeah.
I think they said some 93% of people with fertility issues or chronic miscarriage actually have a vitamin D deficiency. So I'm thinking, okay, well, because I had bumped it up to like 12,000 IUs a day for months.
Mhm.
And so I really think that was it. But I do think that the acupuncture helped put my body in a position to like just for everything to kind of come together. But
Mhm.
what's interesting is I've sent other people in the United States to acupuncture. And when they come back to me for various reasons, when they come back to me, they tell me what I ask them, like, what was it like? And they're like, oh, they put a little, a couple needles in my wrist. They did a few in my ear. I'm like, so you're
Yeah.
not coming out of there looking like a pincushion? Because that's what my doctor does. Like you are. I took
Mhm.
my husband, he got it at the same time as me that first time. And I mean, I took pictures of him and he looks like something out of a movie. Because there's just needles all over his back, his
Um,
legs, his feet, his, fingers, everything. So the reason why I'm asking you is because you're in a position to like have a better accurate handle on this. But or is there a difference in true traditional Chinese medicine in acupuncture and like what's practiced in the West, which it seems to me the Western version is like a really watered down version. I have sent people to some traditional Chinese medicine clinics where everybody's got a Chinese doctor, so-and-so's got a Chinese name, where it doesn't seem to be an issue. So do you see any disparity between how it's practiced in the West?
Yeah, that's a really good question because when I was learning acupuncture, for me, it was fun whenever I traveled to see what the acupuncture is like. So I've had acupuncture in Ireland, I've had it in Poland, in the US, in different states in the US, and they are definitely not created equal. And it's not even just the Western versus Eastern acupuncture locations. It's more like, what is this individual? What style are they practicing? As I mentioned earlier in our conversation, that I practice five element acupuncture, and there's also traditional Chinese medicine acupuncture, which is more standardized, and then they have Korean, Japanese, etc. So if you go to a Western practitioner who focuses more on just auricular acupuncture, or they focus more on like their specific style is fertility acupuncture, you're going to get something more geared towards that. And additionally, with how states regulate acupuncture, if you go to Maryland, you don't need to pass the boards to be licensed. At least when I graduated, that was the rule, while other states have more steps in order to be licensed. So the quality of the care that you're getting can be different based on how much experience the practitioner has. And same with the needles, depending on your presentation. For example, you are a very unique individual, and you come with your own unique set of symptoms, your unique energies, and the practitioner has to work with that in order to treat the root cause of what's happening. So if both you and I go to an acupuncturist and we're both coming in with insomnia and anxiety, I may get a different set of needles than you because the insomnia and anxiety in me can be from a different root. So they would have to select a different pairing of points, a different diet for me, and different lifestyle recommendations. So that's why there's so much variety. And if you found a practitioner who knows what they're doing and they're seasoned, then the effect that you'll have will be life-changing. And that was my experience, since the practitioner I went to also had a PhD in biochemistry. She was a Western doctor first, then she did Chinese medicine. So I felt like I had this double whammy with my treatment. And it really changed the course of my health, my digestion, and my hormones. But I have heard of individuals going to get acupuncture and they say, oh, well, I mean, I felt a little relaxed, the needles hurt a little bit, but it wasn't their thing. So I think that there's also that element of choosing the right person for you. Just like not every dermatologist you go to, you're going to click with, and they're going to give you that treatment that you really need. But just to summarize, I think a big part of it is their experience, the style that they practice, and whether or not you have that good rapport between you guys, because it's still like a healing safe space where you want to feel comfortable with your practitioner and feel like they hear you and they're actually here to treat you and you're not just a number of, just not just another payment on their schedule.
Yeah, that was tricky for me because I spoke even less Russian then than I do now. And my doctor, Pavel Petrovich, he couldn't get the idea, because I didn't understand him. He did the thing where he just talks really loud and shouts at me
Yeah.
instead of like thinking like, no, I literally don't know the words. No matter how loud you talk, it's not going to make any sense. Um, it also lasted a really long time. So every time you go for a session with him, it's 2.5 weeks every single day, Monday through Friday. And by the end, you are exhausted. Like it sucks the life right out of you. Is that normal?
That depends too. So, depending on where your energy is, because acupuncture is the manipulation of these energy fields in your body. And it's very much like how you have the blood vessels in your body. It's a network of blood and it's transporting nutrients in your body. You have this additional layer where the energy moves in your body. And it's also networks that can be blocked. And sometimes that energy moves in the wrong direction. So the needles, they are supposed to go into those energy centers along those pathways and target those regions to either move the energy back in the right flow or unblock stagnant energy. So, for example, what I notice sometimes with myself is that I try, like the lifestyle I have with work is go, 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 get things done. And I have this artificial energy from my mind being busy that I need to do these things fast and now. And that creates a certain type of energy that moves forward and it moves fast. So when I get acupuncture afterwards, I tend to feel really tired. And the reason for that is because now my body's being reminded that it needs to slow down. And the acupuncture forces me to slow down. Because when I feel that level tired after the acupuncture, my mind and body, they connect again. And now my mind sees that my body has been tired, that I have been pushing myself. And now I should take the next few days to slow down a little bit, do some yin yoga, sleep in a little bit more to recover because it's not sustainable to always have go, go, go energy. On the flip side, if you're someone who's really lethargic and you aren't really stimulating yourself a lot and you get acupuncture, you may feel really energized. So now your body is speeding up to where your mind should be, and you may have more motivation and more of that go, go, go energy. And that's also because we're balancing yin and yang, which are these two contradicting opposite energies that we need to have a balance in. Yang energy is that fast, flowy, energetic energy, while yin is a little bit slow and quiet. We need both to be in balance for us to have optimal health.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah, I was a huge stress junkie at that time, like bad. It was really bad. My doctor, uh, that particular doctor was what's wrong with you? Why do you feel like you have to just keep doing stuff all the time? Like, I don't know. I'm from America. That's what we do.
Yeah, it's our culture and that affects our energy. For example, if you go to a city, you'll find that the energy there is faster too, and there's more anger. And when you, as an acupuncturist, treat individuals who are from a city, you often find that they have similar types of dysfunction internally. We have this thing in Chinese medicine that we call liver qi stagnation. And that's when the pathways of energy that move through the liver meridian, that's like this pathway in your body, get blocked, you start to feel angry and irritated, you PMS more, you sigh more, there's more frustration, and you'll find that more people who live a go, go, go lifestyle end up having liver qi stagnation, where this frustration gets built up. And with the needles, we need to disperse it.
That makes sense. Kat, did you have any? Kat has a health and wellness background too, so I'm excited that she's on today. Because she'll probably have better questions than I will.
Nice to meet you, Kat.
Hi, nice to meet you, Paula. Can you hear me okay, everybody?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Um, yeah, I was on a few minutes late, so I missed the very beginning, but I've been enjoying listening to Paula talk about her experiences and about Chinese medicine. Yeah, I've actually received acupuncture several times. It's one of my favorite modalities to receive. I'm a student of Chinese medicine. I've had just a few mentors and just practiced and read a lot. So it's a passion of mine, and I've had the different experiences with acupuncture because I've gone to different practitioners. So I've had experiences where I have, you know, 25 needles in me all over the place, like you were saying, Abby. And when I went to, it was actually a woman from China. She studied in China, but she practices in the US. Um, and it was a profoundly different experience going to her than to other practitioners who trained in the US in maybe a different style. Um, and not to say that one was necessarily better than the other, they were just different. I noticed different things. So, with the practitioner from China, I noticed that she used more needles. She was not quite as gentle, and she also did some cupping on me, and um, it was very intense. I guess intense is the best word, but still, I felt relaxed afterwards, and I felt shifts happening. Um, I think that acupuncture, and Paula, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that it's also kind of putting you into a parasympathetic state when you come out of a
Yes.
treatment. So it's like you're back to baseline, and then you can go from there. So I noticed for myself, I really did feel relaxed and sometimes really low energy afterwards, because I think that I was in the fight or flight mode, as most of us kind of are. So it was like back to baseline, and then I realized that I needed to actually rest to recover the energy that I should have, as opposed to drinking more coffee or doing something to artificially get that energy up. So yeah, I've had profound experiences with acupuncture. I definitely recommend it to people, and I really enjoy the different aspects of, or I should say, the different within Chinese medicine, the different ways that someone can practice. So the five element, um, and also the maybe more ancient, but I guess you could call it classical Chinese medicine. So they bring in a lot more of the spiritual side of things, which I believe in TCM, or traditional Chinese medicine, is kind of put to the side a bit. So yeah, it's a profound modality. The tongue diagnosis and pulse diagnosis has always been fascinating to me. And Yeah, so that's kind of my experience with Chinese medicine and acupuncture. Um, yeah.
So, Paula, you have a wide variety of skills and like a lot of knowledge and everything. Like, what's your favorite? Like, what's the thing you've stuck with that you are just really in love with? You think it's the most powerful modality that you're working with right now or have in the
Yeah.
past?
It's actually really, I think, the simplest one because it's what I do every day and what we all do every day, and that's our diet. And before I even got into acupuncture or anything with holistic medicine, I was interested in what is a healthy diet? What does that mean to me? How do I feel my best? And I've tried all kinds of diets over the past 12 years. And I think that really listening to my body and optimizing my diet helps me the most day to day. So that's like the most simple one. But in terms of like tech and more of like the sciencey modalities, I do like neurofeedback training because it's one, I have a lot of experience with it. So I have a background in doing it clinically, for example, with individuals who have ADHD or autism or head injuries, but also in the peak performance realm where you can use the technology to train yourself to be faster, be smarter, have better peripheral vision. So I think if you guys are Euro Cup fans, when Spain won the Euro Cup, and this was several years ago, their players were using neurofeedback to train in order to optimize their performance.
Can we
And
time out? Hold on. Can you explain what it is? Because my brain's
yeah,
not putting all of the picture together.
Yeah.
I have ideas. My imagination's running wild with me, but can you explain what that is?
Totally. I guess I'll end the suspense. What it is, so you have a cap on your head, and this cap looks like a swimmer's cap with several electrodes on it that collects your brainwave data. And that brainwave data is through a wire being sent to a computer that reads your brainwave activity live. It's picking up those electrical waves that come from your brain is like a battery, so it's emitting these waves. And what happens is there's a program that is able to interpret that data and give you feedback in return. It's very much like Pavlov's dogs and the conditioning that when he rings the bell, the dogs salivate because they expect food. So here we're conditioning the brain with a reward that is on the computer screen, which can be a video game that you're playing. And this video game, like, say, just as an example, you are driving a race car and your brain waves, based on how they're behaving, make the race car go or the race car stops because your brain waves are no longer behaving in that optimal way. And that optimal way is defined by the technician who's working with you and based on a database that the computer has of thousands of brains within your demographic that are within this optimal range. So you're training your brain to be more normative. And so, say if you have anxiety, your brain waves are behaving a certain way when you're anxious. They're faster and they're very stimulating. And that's why you start to feel overwhelmed and you have these racing thoughts. So if you have this cap on your head that's feeding the computer information and we're picking up these fast brain waves, the race car will not go. So you have to calm down your brain and these waves have to start to relax and now the race car moves. And if you keep doing this over and over, kind of like going to the gym and training, the brain gets better and better at self-regulating these anxious brain waves so that when you're out in public and you may be faced with a situation where you are anxious, the brain it'll kind of kick in that conditioning and you'll be able more easily to pull yourself out of that anxious state.
Hi, Patrick. Paul, that sounds awesome. I had like 3 questions I was ready to roll with. And then I got sidetracked. Do you, in that process, do you guys, do anything with meditation? Like, do you look at people who meditate? Like, does meditation at all play into how people respond to that?
Yes, and I love that you brought this up because this is a big area in the peak performance community that involves neurofeedback training. I mentioned earlier that I worked for a meditation retreat in Seattle, and there we were using neurofeedback training, but instead of trying to teach you to not be anxious or to focus better, etc., we were utilizing that training while you were meditating to help you achieve certain meditation states. For example, when you meditate, you can get into an alpha brainwave state. And what that means is the alpha brainwaves, they're from 8 to 12 hertz, and they're this not very fast brainwave and not very slow. They are most dominant when you are relaxed and aware and not judging anything, but you're also not drowsy. And a lot of people, when you meditate, you want to be in the state of awareness where your mind is clear. That's alpha. So if you have a way to let you know that your brain is an alpha by using a computer, you can better train yourself to reinforce that state. There's also theta meditation, which is a little bit slower brainwaves than alpha. And these are the ones that help you have more visions and like dig into your subconscious mind and be able to do inner child exercises. And it's a little bit more difficult to do because you start to get drowsy here. And when you start to get drowsy, the brain wants to turn off and go into an even slower state, which is sleep. But there have been a lot of studies done on meditation and also individuals that have special abilities. What does their brain look like when they get into those states? And for me, that's really fascinating research.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'd be eating it all up, reading like just papers and too much. That would be like an information junkie's Christmas.
Totally. I'll have to send you a book. There's a couple interesting ones
Oh
in
yeah,
there.
absolutely.
neurofeedback training.
Do you have any for like anybody who's out there, like anybody interested in the topic, like might be able to read up on it?
Yeah. So a really basic one that like basic, not as in like not a lot of information, but it gives you like the summary of information. And it's a really easy read is A Symphony in the Brain. I forgot who it's by, but it's this guy who's investigating neurofeedback and he's speaking to a lot of the fathers of neurofeedback and explaining the concept and the origin, because it started off on cats where they had an electrode attached to just one electrode collecting information from their brain. And when a certain predefined behavior happened in the cats, they would be given milk. And then they'd get that milk as the reward. And that was the initial feedback for this. And from that, that transformed into neurofeedback, where they have this computer and then you have the cap on your head and we don't get milk, unfortunately, but we get a simulation from the computer, be it a game or a sound that tells our brain we're in the right place.
So is there, I know you said you do this work with athletes and people who generally want to be better. You said it, you do work with children with various special needs and whatnot. What's
Yeah.
like the most, like the coolest results, or the people who seem to maybe you wouldn't expect have such a positive outcome when they try it? Like what's been your experience with that?
Well, one that comes to mind is I used to work for my dad's clinic. That's how I got started. He's a neurologist and he started doing neurofeedback training in his clinic when in 2011. That's when I was first introduced to it. And while I was in undergrad, I would help him out at his clinic and see some clients and set up the neurofeedback training as a technician. And we had one patient who had a stroke and half of his brain was damaged where his left eye, he couldn't see anything. So the eye was physically fine, but the part of the brain in the occipital lobe that controls his vision and interprets what the eye sees didn't work anymore. So we weren't overselling what was possible with neurofeedback because this was a first case for us. But by doing the training and working on the occipital lobe, he was able to regain his sight. So the brain was still damaged. But with neurofeedback, studies have shown that you can create new white and gray brain matter and neuroplasticity occurs. So new highways basically formed around that area that was damaged to reconnect parts of his brain that were no longer transmitting signals. And as a result, he could see in that left eye again.
That's awesome. That sounds like similarly along the same lines of people who through meditation have been able to regain eyesight or different parts of their bodily function. I'm sure they're doing
like Joe Dispenza type of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm a big believer that the mind is so powerful and we're just on the surface unlocking what we're capable of doing.
Yeah. Pat, I saw you're on there. I'm assuming you're still there. You're welcome to jump in here at any time. Cat 2, Friar's radio silent on the other end. Did we have anybody in the chat? Any questions or anything that for Dr. Paula or anybody or about anything?
There were no questions in the chat.
Okay.
I've got a couple of things to mention. This conversation is great. It's fascinating. And some of the things you're saying, Paula, remind me of, well, there's a couple of things about it. There's one, I'm wondering if neurofeedback works on the premise that our bodies are electric. And the reason I ask is because even though it's a different modality, what you're kind of getting at with working with someone sounds very similar to some of what I do with biofield tuning. It's just a very different modality. So it's using tuning forks. Maybe instead of having the process that you're doing with the electrodes and with kind of mapping the brain and kind of redirecting or recreating certain neural pathways, what biofield tuning is doing is using the tuning forks to kind of look at what's going on in the energy field of the body, and then through the feedback of what the fork is sounding like, so you can have a disharmonic frequency that's being reflected back from the body's energy field, and you can stick with that until it comes into resonance, until the body kind of auto corrects. So it's like to me it sounds like kind of a similar sort of maybe end result, as far as you know, it can help with different mindsets and belief patterns and ways of being in the world and those kinds of things. And yeah, it's just fascinating to me. So I wonder if the premise of the body being electric is part of what you work with. And then the other thing I'll mention real quick is that I'm also on board with nutrition being super important, like number one, because if you have the building blocks you need to create, you know, healthy tissues, hormones, all those things, then you actually just have more potential and more energy to show up in the world. So I feel like nutrition is sometimes overlooked or diminished, but I feel like it can be huge for not just physical health, but mental health, emotional, spiritual, all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that observation. With neurofeedback, I don't think in the sciencey part, when they're looking at, like, yes, we're looking at electrical brainwaves. So by definition, we are talking about the electricity and what's going on here. I don't think that in the science they go so far to think about the whole body. And that's has always been my issue with Western medicine in general, that they'll be like, okay, we're looking at your brain. We're not going to look at how that responds, like, because you have specialists who just look at the heart or the lungs or the brain, etc. So I think that connection between fusing what do we have, the information with your brain and the electricity in the brain, fusing that with what you mentioned, biofuel tuning, you're able to hear the feedback and respond to the feedback of the rest of the electricity in the body. Then layer on top acupuncture, we are using needles to redirect the electricity in the body. And then every food that you have, it has like its own energetic properties, which in Chinese medicine is honored. And when we look at your body and the presentation you have, for example, if you have a lot of what we call cold symptoms, like your body is cold, you're slower, your skin is cold, and versus hot symptoms, we would recommend foods that have a warming effect to like get your digestion going, warm your body up. So I think that it's really cool to me to see how everything overlaps and layers in science, in our knowledge, also in nature, how the change in the seasons even affect how our body responds. And I love that Chinese medicine takes that into account because we're not separate from the world that we live in. It's going to impact us. And there was something else I wanted to say. It'll come back to me though, but I thought that was a really good point that you brought up. Oh yes,
Paula,
I remember now.
go ahead, go
How
ahead.
food, the food that you eat is, a part of your body too, and how that affects you. And what I saw a few years ago that was really interesting to me is when they biopsied fat in cadavers, they were able to identify where that fat came from. Was it seed oils? Was it from pork or beef or avocado? So it really does make a difference what you are putting into your body because you are literally becoming it.
Paula, real quick, we do have a question in the chat, but before we get to that, are you seeing any type of shift in the medical field in the community with just practitioners coming to the conclusion that diet actually means something, and maybe some of these other modalities have benefits as opposed to just strictly, pushing drugs and hoping that you come back, every year?
I wish I could say that there has been a big shift, but currently I still feel there's a huge disparity. I think that pharmaceuticals bring in so much money into, like that is a huge business in itself, that it would be very hard to not push that in Western medicine. And I remember like my dad did his residency and went to middle school years and years ago. But I remember talking to him and he said that they maybe had 20 minutes about diet and that was it. And he did oncology first before he became a neurologist. And I believe that diet really affects how the cancer develops in your body. So it blows my mind that teaching oncology medical students not anything about diet is really a disservice to our society. I think that there are groups of people right now in Western medicine that I do see popping up on social media and promoting avoiding toxins, eating healthier. So I do think that there is like this like revolution of it, but I don't think that it's enough yet because there's still so much promotion of unhealthy lifestyles and medication going on in our media right now.
On that note, Friar, what do we got in the chat?
What have we got? We got, sorry about that. My Alex is coming up.
You're still in Alex Jones mode?
Oh, we're just talking about Operation Facehugger right now, which is amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Double J asks for the doctor, how can we implement these techniques, neurofeedback, as in books, in addition to a symphony in the brain, herbs, supplements, or do we need to find a professional? And I will go ahead and read the follow-up questions just to get those done. How are you received by other colleagues? Have you received pushback regarding the techniques used, or have they been embraced?
Okay. So the first question, just to clarify, is how do we implement neurofeedback and Chinese medicine without looking for a practitioner, or are they
I'm assuming it's sort of like, how do we DIY this jobby?
Okay, so
Or if
unfortunately,
not, like, do you need to go to see somebody?
yeah, I would say don't put needles in your body by yourself without training.
Oh, come on.
We do that in acupuncture school, so I've definitely put my own needles in myself before I had finished school, but that's different because we had a background in that. I would definitely seek out somebody who is licensed in your region who practices either I recommend usually TCM or Five Element Acupuncture, but that's because I don't have a huge background in the other ones. I'm sure they're great too. I would also kind of vet them and see if they do make any dietary suggestions or if it is just the needles in there. I usually prefer when my practitioner helps me with diet as well. I always think it's helpful to hear someone else's opinion. With neurofeedback, there are devices that you can buy online that are less expensive than, because the equipment that we use in clinic, this is starting at $15,000. So for the layman, if you don't know much about neurofeedback training, it's not worth it for you to spend that kind of money. You would need a lot of time to learn how to use it. I believe that there's a device called Mind Lift that is out right now, and Sensei. So it would be sensei dot, like Japanese sensei. So sensei.ai. I believe those are ones that you can buy without a practitioner's license. And those are really simple because they have like 2 points on the head and collects brainwave data from 2 points in the front, 2 points in the back. And you're able to get relatively good training with that, where it helps you achieve, like I mentioned earlier, the alpha state or the theta state, or lets you know where you're dysregulated. But it's never going to be as good as the clinical ones, since those have 19 electrodes and it picks up a lot more information. And we're able to generate 3D models of your brain and see what's going on in the deeper structures, like the amygdala and like the cerebellum, which are highly important to know in order to regulate these regions. And then the other question was if I have pushback from the medical community. From my experience, I haven't really felt any negativity from my colleagues in Western medicine. And I think that's because I kind of am in a bubble where I'm not interacting so much. And like, I'm not working in a hospital, for example, and I'm not in environments where I am the minority. When I worked in 40 Years of Zen in Seattle, that was like a biohacker's paradise. So everybody going there was, living, breathing, biohacking, doing all of this cutting edge technology. At the neuropsychology clinic I work at, one of our main modalities that we offer is neurofeedback training for the children that we work with and the individuals. So a lot of people seek us out because they already want to do neurofeedback. And I would say I do sometimes get a little pushback from a couple parents who maybe are more skeptical. And in that case, I just explain more how it works, what the technology is like. I find that individuals who have an engineering background tend to be like a little bit more curious because there's a lot of tech conversation that goes into what neurofeedback is and how does it work and what does this jargon mean. So I would say that's where I've seen maybe the most pushback, but not so much professionally.
Friar, are you still there? He disappeared on me. Okay. I remembered one of my questions. See if I can phrase it correctly. So you said you work with kids with ADHD, yes. And what was the other one?
Autism, learning disorders.
Yeah. So how, like, what's the progress like? Like what type of, if somebody's bringing their child in and they're committed to it, they're going to go all in, you know, whatever it takes. Like what kind of success rate do they have?
Typically, if we're looking at it purely statistically with neurofeedback in itself, 75% of individuals notice changes within 10 sessions.
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
would say our program that we offer at the Abbey Neuropsychology Clinic is minimum 3 months that we like to work with a child or an adult because we work with people of any age. We just seem to get more children. And the average is about 6 to 9 months. And this is usually because we do get a lot of difficult cases. I would say that working with someone who has autism, there is a lot of complexity that happens that isn't just a simple fix. And what I mean by that is when you're using neurofeedback training, for the brain to respond, you need, there are these layers of complexity. If you have a disorder that is a little bit, one is shorter term that you just started experiencing and it's not something chronic, and it's a bit milder, as in like say anxiety or improving your focus, that's a lot easier to fix something than with autism or chronic depression, excuse me, that has been going on for a while and the brain structures are more affected by it. So with autism spectrum disorder, it's not just the brainwaves that are dysregulated, it's also the digestive tract. You often see that they have some gut disorders or food sensitivities that are paired along with it. So as a holistic practitioner, I would, of course, want to train the brain, but what's going on with the body? Like, what can we do to improve the diet? And a lot of the parents are on a gluten-free, dairy-free diet for their child, and they are mindful about that, so that does help. At the clinic, we also offer different training for attention span and for reading and learning disorders, which aren't neurofeedback. These are more where they work with the trainer and they perform different exercises to help support that while using neurofeedback as the physiology-based approach to help the brainwaves regulate as they're learning these new skills with their trainer.
Okay. That's awesome. I'm glad you guys touch on the food stuff, you know, the other potential contributing factors to ADHD and autism and whatnot. Do you have any, are you allowed to, is it safe to talk about that in any more depth? Like, do you have any theories on what the biggest factors? Because I believe, what is it like now, 1 in 35 kids now has, they're on the spectrum, which is clearly much different from 10, 20, 30 years ago. Do you have any thoughts on that?
That there are probably two components. Years ago, there wasn't so much diagnosis of children. You didn't have so much ADHD either. You didn't have so much oppositional defiance disorder, not so much autism. And I think that back then there may have been people who would now have this diagnosis that were just labeled as problem children, like, oh, that guy's just, he's a problem child, he's difficult, but they didn't have that diagnosis. While now we are more equipped to identify and diagnose children, I think that's one. But also where I'm leaning towards more is that our environment is probably creating this type of making this more profound, because we have worse quality food, we have more toxins, we have more of the PFAS in our environment. They even found microplastics in Antarctica, like it's spread everywhere. And I think that also the introduction of technology is a double-edged sword, because one, we can have wonderful Zoom conversations, but two, now we're so overstimulated by information, our brains and bodies can't process that. And from a Chinese medicine perspective, the content that you consume mentally affects your digestion. So you are, in a way, digesting this content that you are being exposed to. So I don't believe that the human body has evolved to the point where it's able to process the toxins we're exposed to, the diet we're exposed to, and the content that we are exposed to right now. So there has been a shift. And I had an interesting conversation with my dad about autism spectrum, and he has like this theory that it's a loose theory, but it's something that he mentioned, that autism could be an evolution of the human race, because with more technology, we don't need social skills so much because we have the tech doing everything. But a lot of people on the high-performing autism spectrum have very high IQ. So you're very smart, you're very good at tech. A lot of autistic people are computer junkies, know everything about computers. So it makes sense that what if this is the next step in evolution, where we don't need our social skills so much, we are better at computers, and we're living life this way because our environment has become more technology based. But that's just a theory. I think that it's mostly the diet that is causing more inflammation in our brains and in our guts, which is affecting our behaviors.
Yes, it's a very different on the spectrum of X-Men or, illness.
Exactly.
I kind of like it, that the idea, I think that's interesting. I've never heard anybody put that forward before, that maybe it's an adaptation. I mean, I can see where we would need to adapt very, very rapidly to this environment that has, as far as we know, never existed before. So, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. I would read a book on that if somebody, like, if your dad ever writes a book on that or comes out with it, See, on like social, does he do social media, or is he like, no, I'm gonna
Not so much. He's very old school. Both my parents, they're straight from Poland. They went to school there and then they emigrated here. And my dad does write a lot of articles, so you'll find a lot of his published works. And he has been in books, though. I guess we'll see, in the next 10 years, maybe things will change. We'll have more evidence and more content, and we'll come out with something.
Yeah,
I
that's
am very interested to see like what the trends are, because if you look at just 5 years ago, our social media, our technology has been so different. It's
it's
just crazy how
a completely
fast
different
things are
universe.
moving.
Even the
Mhm.
last 5 years, things are completely different.
Yeah.
Pat, Kat, Friar, do you have anything?
So
Anything in the chat?
there is something in the chat. I can do chat. Watch me go.
Or you, if you have something, Friar. You've been
Oh,
quiet.
me and my words.
Okay.
Niki says, changing my diet reversed a lot of my neurological issues. I tell everyone the food is terrible.
It is. Agreed.
See, I just drink food coloring straight. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Yes, I remember when I don't know, it was in the 90s. One of my cousins, because you guys, Catholic family, hundreds of possibly thousands at this point, cousins. But one of them came to me and was like, "You shouldn't eat those red M&Ms." Like, why? What's wrong with it? It's the red dye number 40. It makes you hyper. I swear it makes all my kids hyper. I'm like, that sounds crazy. Then you start looking into it. How many things have we been told that on the surface sound crazy, but there's actually something to it? And that was just probably I don't know. She's a doctor now. But I have like a ton of doctors in my family for, they're just interested in these same topics. Maybe it's genetic, who knows? But they were just going on anecdotal evidence in the beginning. you know, but then they really started to dig just like everybody else. And I mean, there's something to it. There
And a lot
definitely
of that
is.
is banned in Europe too. So why are they not allowing this food in that we consume regularly? And it's funny, I remember for Halloween when I was a kid, my mom would go through all my candy and sort out all the colored candy. I couldn't have it. I can have the chocolates. And as a kid, I was like, why? You know? But now as an adult, I'm so happy that she did that and was so mindful about me consuming. Like, of course, we weren't the perfect, healthy family. I still ate things that later I found out I'm sensitive to. But now being able to reflect on that, I'm so glad I wasn't consuming so much red 40 or yellow 5, you know, whatever the other colors are that are still dangerous to our bodies.
Paula, I know you gotta go soon, but that kind of brings up another topic. So I think you go back to Poland periodically, right? You go to Europe now and
Yeah.
again. Um, Obviously I live in Russia and I'm on the Asian side of the border, closer to Mongolia than maybe, you know, the European side.
Mhm.
But every time I come here, well, let me go back. I was kind of a basket case when I lived in the United States and I had a very clean diet. I mean, I don't count my vegan years as being clean. But even after I switched out of being a vegan and vegetarian, I still had a pretty clean diet, very similar
Yeah.
to like a Japanese style
Mhm.
diet, you know, a lot of fish, rice, and vegetables and whatnot. Um, but I still had really, really high anxiety. When I came over here, it took about 2 weeks. And I noticed for the first time in my life, like all of my anxiety was gone. All of it. It was crazy. It was bizarre. I was here for a month. And then after I went back to the United States, it took about 2 more weeks. And this seems to be the pattern. After being in the United States for 2 weeks, I feel chemically, like I feel medicated. I feel like I'm taking something, you know, and I have at different times in my life for said anxiety taken like Zoloft or,
Mhm.
Prozac or what, you know, whatever it was. So I know what that feeling is. And as soon as I come back over here, it's gone. And the other people who come to Europe, they have family in Europe, they say the exact same thing. What's been your experience with that?
Yeah, I definitely notice when I go to the grocery store that the quality is different. I avoid wheat generally, and when I'm in Europe, even like if I go to Italy or if I go to Poland, I find that I tolerate the wheat a lot better. And correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I heard that even in that Russia will not buy meat from the US, and I don't know if that's like a political thing or just like our quality of meat is so bad that they don't want to buy our product. But
There's
I
all kinds of stuff that they will not import, not just from the US, from anywhere. If they have like GMOs are banned, all kinds. I could go on. I mean, it's a giant, giant list, but yeah, they're very strict with all of it.
Yeah, and it's hard to eat clean here because even if you buy something that's organic, how do you know that it's not um been because they test the organic food and they still had residue of pesticides because the farms aren't in their own bubble. The wind can still bring the pesticide. And the glycophosphate that we spray our wheat with, that is really affecting our bodies and our nervous systems. So I think when we go to an environment where there's less of that, that's better for us. Our body responds better. And I also have my own theory. I have a ton of theories that maybe aren't rooted in science, just
What's
my
your
own
theory?
opinion. That for every human, there's like this ideal place in the world where you just have more good luck, you feel better, the energy's better for you. And when you're in that place, that's where your magic happens, that everything good happens to you. Then you go to other parts of the world where maybe there isn't some sort of alignment, and then you start to face things that like with your body that you feel less healthy, you feel more anxiety, you end up having bad luck, financial issues. And I've noticed that for myself. Whenever I go to Poland, things seem to work out. Whenever I go to, um, I think it was like one part of Florida, everything bad would happen to me. I would always run into bad luck. And I think that maybe it's mental because I'm like, oh, I'm going to this bad luck place. So I call it to me. But of course, if it is mental, it's still affecting me. So it's still a real phenomenon. So I think that
That
maybe
That's
something like
not,
that.
yeah, you're not imagining that. You can see those things in astrology. You almost every time I'll go out on a limb and say it is every single time when you're in one of those places where it's
Mhm.
really good or really bad for you. If you look at the astrocartography, you can see what's going on. So
Right.
you're definitely not imagining that. And the body knows. As far as astrology is concerned, like you're going to resonate with what's naturally like the natural flow of the universe. It usually lines up astrologically. So when you go against that, yeah, you're definitely going to have some problems. Real quick, Paula, because again, I know you got to jump off here. Pat said, I don't know why he didn't just shout over us so that
Because
he
I
wrote it in the
said
chat.
something and I couldn't be heard. I think you were saying something. I was like, all right, I'll just
Oh, maybe. Yeah, I didn't hear you. He said, what about psychosomatic connections to disorders? He missed the first 15, so not sure if that was mentioned, which it wasn't. Do you have anything to say about that before you got to go?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, the mind is very powerful, and we're still learning more and more about the mind. And in my experience, I have noticed in my own life and my own health journey how my mindset has affected how my body feels. And I've also seen in clinical situations where individuals who have a negative mindset tend to be more hypochondriacs and always finding something wrong and always finding new ailment in their bodies. And people who are more positive seem, there's actually a study that individuals who are depressed die from the cold in a higher proportion than individuals who have a positive mindset when they have the cold or the flu. So I think that psychosomatic is, same with placebo. I think that these are all real effects that we just put this label on because we're still not sure how to scientifically explain how does this actually happen, that it affects our body by the way that our mind is thinking.
Well, I asked the question because I have a experience. I did a whole bunch of health stuff on my own, left the medical world. Or like I got headaches at 15 years old and they just diagnosed me with constant daily headaches. Like
Yeah.
you just get a headache every day.
Yeah. It's
Take
like,
a
duh, well, I
leave.
already knew that, right? You knew you had
Yeah,
headaches.
it literally
Right.
told me nothing. I'm 15, and
Yeah.
so they take Tylenol. I go a couple
Mhm.
months, they don't go away. Take a leave, take naproxen. They're throwing everything at me within a year, and I did like they weren't going away. And then the doctor like changed or retired,
Mhm.
and I'm through high school just dealing with it,
Yeah.
and get through college dealing with it. It got worse. Around 24, I started throwing up every morning because of the acid levels and the bile that had been built up. Did that for a whole year, and then got to a doctor, luckily, who was a PhD in the New England Journal of Medicine, Dr. Asher. And he literally wrote a paper on analgesic rebound effects of the liver and NSAIDs. And
Yeah.
so he walked me through it for an hour and we argued and went back and forth. And he's like, you got to go cold turkey. So I quit taking them. I went through the cold turkey phase and they went away, but then I started getting a migraine. And
Mhm.
so that's when I stopped and I was like, okay, I've gotten through the physical chemical thing. There's something else here. And I started meditating spontaneously, basically.
Mhm.
Within 2 weeks, I had this whole experience where I literally heard a voice and it said the divorce. All these images, memories, feelings, all this stuff poured in and it was really pouring out. But I had a headache because my parents got divorced when I was 15 and it like psychologically affected me so much. And I buried it so well
Yeah.
that it literally gave me headaches every day to deal with it. Once I had that experience, I never had headaches after that, except for like a hangover, basically.
Yeah.
So I started using meditation very religiously, if you will, after that. Like, what else can we do with it? And I got very into the psychosomatic connections of pain in the body. And it's really, feelings, emotional, mental pain, basically, that you're not
Yeah.
dealing
The body keeps the score. There's a
with.
book about that, how
Yeah, it's a
we,
book.
even though mentally, like when you get into a car accident, people understand that you need time to heal and like there's a process. But when you have an emotional trauma, people usually are like, oh, just get over it. You don't think about the healing process that it takes for you to recover from that. And oftentimes, especially for men, you're told to just suppress it and like, just deal with it and let it go. But that suppression, subconsciously it affects you. That's probably why you unlocked all of these memories. But also in Chinese medicine, when you suppress stuff, it affects your liver qi. Again, it's like this liver energy, and that can build up and rise and get hot and affects your head. And that creates pressure in your head and this heat, which can be felt as headaches. So that's
Yeah.
interesting seeing like the different connections to that. I'm really glad you are feeling better though.
Oh, yeah. And the other thing, too, I was going to mention about diet. I had a gout diagnosis at 30 years old on my birthday. And they told me like take a pill or change your whole life. And I was like, I don't take pills. So I changed my whole life. And diet affects everything because 2.5 years later, I wasn't seeing a doctor, so it didn't get like charted, if you will.
Yeah.
But I actually, the body, after 2.5 years of doing the right things, the body ejected the crystals out of my toe on Father's Day 2.5 years later.
Wow.
No more gout. Like, and then I went the whole other way and alkalinized and then balanced it all out. But
Mhm.
the diet is what is you're building your
Yeah.
body. It's so basic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the body's
absolutely.
wise, it wants to heal. So if we just allow the body the
Right.
opportunity to heal, it will do that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have more questions for you, Pat, and I think Kat can piggyback on some of that stuff. But Paula, I think you have to go. It was so great having you. You are a wealth of knowledge, an entire encyclopedia of cool stuff. We'd love to have you back on anytime. How can people get a hold of you?
So you could find my website. I think it is linked to the live stream on YouTube, but it's
Probably.
thegracefulguide.com, and there's a contact form, so you can send me an email and we can connect that way.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again so much for being here today.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Well, take care of yourself. Um, Hopefully we didn't have any more questions in the chat for Paula. Does she have
No,
anything else in there? No. Okay.
no other questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, great. Well, thank you once again, and I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day.
Thanks, you too. Have fun.
Stay safe. Bye.
Bye. Um, Kat, you have all kinds of info you're sitting on over there. I know you do.
Okay, yeah, I have a few things. Um, I going back a little bit, there was a couple of things that I thought of while Paula was talking. When she was talking about why potential reasons why so many children have autism and are on the spectrum from a young age these days, and all kinds of other situations happening for children. I do think all the things she mentioned are very relevant, and I'm also going to go ahead and say it. I feel like the amount of injections of poison that we're giving babies in the form of vaccinations, I think, is doing them a huge disservice. So that's a personal opinion on that. But
Agree.
the topic of digestion, um, I have something to share on that. I feel like digestion can be closely linked to our boundaries, healthy boundaries in the world. So if you think about the food you're digesting, um, your body has to recognize that as it's a foreign object that's coming into your body. And so as you're digesting, it's going through your digestive tract. Your body's constantly sorting out the different parts of that food and breaking it down, getting the nutrition out of it. For people that so basically, what I'm saying is that that digestive tract is a boundary. It's a boundary between things from the outside coming in and then the rest of your body. So, on an energetic level, you can see digestion as related to healthy boundaries. If you are having less healthy boundaries in the world, like where do I end and where does the world begin? Um, Typically those people have more digestive issues, so they can show up as what you would call leaky gut, where proteins and things from the food are making it through the digestive tract into the bloodstream and causing problems like that. So that's one thing on digestion I wanted to mention. And then as far as the psychosomatic topic, in biofield tuning, Eileen McCusick, the woman who kind of mapped out that modality and mapped out what she calls the biofield. There's the biofield anatomy. So there's different ailments or things going on in the body physically that are related to different energy centers in the energetic field. So, for example, someone with a right hip issue physically in their field, you can find that they have a tendency to be over-giving, overdoing, always go, go, go. And the energy gets kind of bound up off the side of the right hip, and you can feel that in the field. You can find that, and when you correct that in the field, then the right hip pain tends to correct itself. So it's just an interesting way to look at it with the different the psychosomatic framework. So, sorry, my cat's sneezing in the background. Another example would be left shoulder pain. So, in the left shoulder area, you can find things related to a sense of deep longing. And it's off the left side of the heart, so that also can have to do with deep sadness and grief. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that the biofield anatomy in the biofield tuning work I do is really fascinating, and I've found a lot of accuracy to that when working with people, as far as finding things in the field and then that corresponding to something for them. There was a woman I was actually working with the other day, and she hadn't told me this before the session, but as I was working in the field, I found something going on over the left adrenal area. So I used the forks in that area until things corrected, and we talked afterwards, and it was extremely relevant for her. She had had pain in that area all day, and that area is related to, the left adrenal is related to a physical threat in your environment, or at least you're sensing a physical threat. So even if it's not there, you're sensing some kind of physical threat, or you're holding on to something that was a physical threat. So maybe some sort of violence or a physical abuse, something like that. But anyhow, it was very relevant for her. She shared with me after the session, I had pain in this area all day today. I didn't mention it to you, but it's completely gone now. Yeah, so it's pretty interesting, fascinating how that all works.
Yeah, I know from having talked to you and having read up on it, I am a huge proponent of biofield tuning. Everyone I think I've talked about it on here before, but everybody I have sent to a practitioner has had 100% of them have had success with it. It's really quite well, it's just a fascinating topic, but one of the reasons why I think that it would probably work even if you knew nothing about what the different areas relate to. I mean, if you're still going in with the tuning forks is totally blind, you would probably still have success. But one of the things that I really like about it is, I don't know, I think the modality is clear that they're using chakras, right? Like they're not making it, like they use those terms. But if you look at basic chakra information out there, that's in the West, if we're not actually talking to like somebody in, like a Buddhist sect or something where they have different, more esoteric information. But just like the standard Western stuff, they don't necessarily divide the chakras to the different sides of the body. And one of the things that, there really is, I think now some of this comes from, I have a Taoist background to an extent. Won't go into it. It's definitely not, doesn't matter. Other than it affects my perception of the chakra system. And I can clearly recognize like the yin side and the yang side, and how those relate within the chakras, how they operate in the body, what that does. And you can get a very clear medical diagnosis using these. And that system, the biofield tuning system, is the only one that I've seen that seems to do that. It's maybe not exactly like all of the same things, but from what we have talked about, you guys, I've had sessions with Kat. I think I told you, I had a pain in my knee when I was running, and I was basically told outside of surgery, you're just kind of stuck with it. There's nothing you can really do. And 2 days after my session with her, the knee pain went away. I haven't had any of it since. So, but outside of that setting, like not a lot of people know about it, but it's exceptional. So I would really recommend anybody out there definitely look into it, not just for pain, for like anything, because we're storing all, like Pat said, he had this stuff from when he was a child that he didn't realize was affecting him physically. It builds up and you got to get rid of it. I'm sure there's lots of different ways to go about that. Obviously, meditation works, acupuncture, things like that. But on a certain level, I mean, why not look at it from every aspect of it? Like take the holistic approach, and the biofield is definitely, that's definitely a good one. It's much less invasive. I'm not a Reiki person. No offense to any Reiki practitioners out there. I just don't trust them. I haven't met one. Like, I'm like, yeah, definitely get into my energy field and start poking around and let's see what no, I'm not doing that. But the biofield is totally different. It's completely different. It's non-invasive, and I don't know, it's really cool.
Quick comment on that Reiki thing. I went to a class where I learned eye reading and tonal healing, and it's a system that connects the organs to tones, and it's absolutely fantastic. I love this. It releases a lot of the stuff using your own system, and you don't need anybody basically. But there was a Reiki person when we were doing like the testing or showing, like, because you have to, it's holding pressure points on the body and then toning from within a certain word and in a certain way. And anyways, this lady, I did 20 minutes with her, and then she does 20 minutes with me. When she gets done, she goes, "Oh, by the way, I'm a Reiki master and I did some Reiki on you. It's cool." Or she said, it's up to you whether or not you accept it," or something like that. And internally, real quick, I'm like, who the fuck are you to sit there and do some shit on me and not even tell me until after the fact, and then go, "Oh, well, it's up to you if you take it." I'm like, mm-mm. And that's happened a few times to me from Reiki people. And my girlfriend actually practices it, and she's never had that experience, heard of it or anything. I'm like, it's happened to me several times. Like, they just do it. And you're like, what are you doing over there?
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
That's interesting. Maybe it attracts a certain type of person. I would think generally it's attracting people who want to help, but there's definitely some of and this may be some personal bias that I've had. I worked as a psychic medium for 20 years. I did a lot of events, and I worked with a lot of the same people, and many of those people were Reiki practitioners. And they just, they were kind of shady on the surface. So I'm like, oh, okay, like I don't really, and a lot of them too, their lives are in shambles, and you're like, oh, and their health is not maybe even the best, and you're like, so you're gonna come and put like your drama, and like, no, you're not good in anywhere near me. Now I understand that the concept of Reiki is you're supposed to be channeling this higher level information, but or like light or healing power, but all the same, I don't know, it's not my thing.
Yeah.
I'm also not a fan of the fact that you have to be like granted the authority by someone else for monetary payment. Like, you can't actually do this until you have this beautiful certificate printed out by my organization that you definitely paid for. Not into that. Yeah, so that's just my thing.
Which is totally not the Japanese mafia, I'm sure.
I don't think it is. I don't think it. I mean, wasn't it a Japanese woman who kind of brought it over?
I don't know.
The one who started it. I don't think she was in the mob.
I specialize in baseless
Yakuza.
accusations, so yeah. Did she have
Okay.
10 fingers?
I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to look into it.
So then real quick, well, it's not a real quick answer, I'm sure, but so then the Reiki versus the biofield, I've been hearing about biofield a little bit around me. So what's the difference, or what is the thing to that modality?
So with Reiki, from my understanding, you are kind of channeling this, what people may call a universal life force energy. You're just like a conduit, kind of
Right.
like it's coming through you and entering the other person, and maybe healing is happening. I think sigils are involved. Um, with biofield tuning, really what it is just it's working with the electromagnetic field that we all have, and it's really just introducing coherence into your field through the forks. It's not like it's not like a you can see it in a metaphysical way, you can see it in a physical way, and both can be accurate, but it's not so much like a force outside moving through the practitioner. It's more things are being introduced into your field frequencies, and your body, the as the person, you know, receiving, your body is interacting, your body's field is interacting with those frequencies that are coming from the forks, and auto correcting imbalances that may be there. You can get really complex about it. Like I can just talk about it from different angles, but on a basic level, I would say that there's, if you want to say like a higher power being involved, not necessarily. However, when your body is in more of a balanced state, and is a more in a more coherent state, then you're allowing more of what you could call God into your life, and you're kind of raising your voltage is another way to think of it. So I mean, that's kind of like a really super basic
Yeah, yeah.
thing, but you kind of probably get the idea. It's fairly different than Reiki. I'd say it's pretty different.
Well, you're using tuning forks, yeah?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and well, the thing is, Eileen McCusick, the founder of it, she will even say, um, tuning forks, they have a specific frequency, and you're ringing them in the field, but really, when you get down to it, they're kind of training wheels. Like you could do this work, it's an intention based system.
Hmm.
You could do this work without a tuning fork.
Yeah.
It's important, you know, I feel like having the witness there as the practitioner is an important element. And then the receiver is the one that's actually doing the healing. And the tuning fork is a way, it's a way of making things more like more audible. It's easier for us to understand and work with at the current state that we're in. I'd say that it it's all in the mind when it comes down to it, or all in the field. Like it's our interaction with the fields around us. So a tuning fork is like a way to make it audible, or a way to feel the vibration, to
Mhm.
help with the sensing, to sort things out. But really, when it comes down to it, it's not even necessary. It's like training wheels for the work to be done. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it does.
We do something similar in exorcisms. So if you have to go in and you have to kick a demon out of a house or an area. Sage does not work. I don't know why people are, oh, I saged the house. You know, that's great. Now your house smells like really smelly weed. I mean, it's nice, like it smells good. Like who doesn't love sage? But it doesn't really work too well. It at least for getting rid of you know, those types of entities. So anyways, we go in, we use tinctures. You guys familiar, like they're the little symbols, and you ding them. They're
Okay.
tinctures, you guys help. Um,
So like finger symbols or small
Not
hand
fingered,
symbols?
they're bigger. They're like
Okay.
about this size, each of them, and they're kind of connected by like, hopefully Kat's getting some. I think she has some, maybe that's why she's,
Yeah.
hopefully she's jumping in to save me
If
here.
now if she starts making noises with those things, I may disappear. You
Okay,
know?
because you have a good headset. Okay, yes, that's exactly what they're. You
Yeah.
don't have to make the noise, Kat, but yeah, that's basically what they are.
Okay.
So those will get rid of temporarily, because all demonic activity is they're ubiquitous in the world. Like you can't really get rid of them. You can temporarily freak them out and get rid of them, right? Just like if Cat were to ding those right now, Friar would have to jump off the call. It's like too much. They can't handle it. So
Well,
anyways, we go in.
because I'm a demon.
Yeah, no, because they're loud. But whatever it is about that, the frequency, the sound, they don't like it. And what you can do is usually one of your demonic entities, I say demonic, you guys, I'm not talking about like some hell demons. I'm just talking about disembodied, you know, stuff.
Yep.
Not quite aliens, not quite ghosts, you know, so whatever that in between stuff is. So, but a lot of times they'll hover in a certain area, and you can actually chase them through your house. You can put up motion sensors, and you can, if you can't see them, if you're not psychically inclined like that, you can feel them a lot of times. Sometimes you'll see like a shadow. Worst case, the motion sensors will pick them up. But anyways, if you crack those things enough times, you do hear the difference. And I know Kat understands this concept because this happens with the tuning forks. They'll get like a really, if there's something there, they get this, it's like really wavery, really unpleasant type of vibe. But once they leave the environment, it's just, they ring perfectly, beautifully clear. You can do the same thing with the chakras on the body. Probably a very primitive version of the biofield tuning, where you go in, you start at the feet behind the person, and you go through with the tinctures, and you can clear out a lot of negativity. Obviously, it's not the whole process. Like what Kat does is much more, what's the word, elegant. It's definitely more refined than that. So I forget why I brought that up, but yes, because even though, yes, I agree with Eileen, that it is all in the mind, essentially. When you get right down to it, you can do all this stuff without any type of instruments, because our power is really on the subtle level. That, the physical world is where we suck, but I do think there's something to be said for the actual physical vibration and the sound in the environment. So, and that's one of the reasons I like biofield tuning.
I would definitely agree with that, Abby, coming from my perspective also, and just I just feel like they're very helpful. And then what was I going to say? Oh, I was just on a call with Eileen yesterday, a Q&A thing, and I had asked her this question. So it's interesting that you bring it up, but she was talking about, the question was about how it is that an incoherent sound can be produced by a tuning fork that is literally produced, like say I'm using a 144 hertz fork, it is tuned to that, it is produced that way, it's tested, that's the frequency you hear when you ring it. But if you're in someone's field and there's something going on there, and there's like a pocket of distortion or something, the fork will sound, you'll hear the overtones or the undertones, it'll sound kind of jarring. It won't have the nice bright clear sound. So I was asking her, can you explain that a little more in depth, like how that works? And the way she explained it was, like, if you imagine dropping you have a stone in each hand and you're dropping them into water, and they both create a wave of their own in that water, and eventually those waves connect. And they cross over. Basically, what you're doing with the sound is that whatever you're working with, say you're working with someone's energy field, or in your case, Abby, you're talking about an entity there, that entity is going to have some sort of vibration or wave coming off of it. So the wave coming off of the tuning fork and the wave coming off of the energy field of whoever you're working with, they eventually meet up. And when there's something going on in the field, or if there's, say, an entity that is in some way, I guess for lack of a better term, I'm just going to call it negative, but it's a disturbance in the field, right? It's going to affect the sound that you hear coming off the fork. So, yeah, I thought that was an interesting explanation of how that works.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. You got to like be in a live call with her and stuff.
Yeah, she's awesome. I took an advanced training with her in Vermont, and so that was awesome. It was like a 3-day event, and there was maybe 20 of us or so, and we were learning some new techniques from her, and then giving and receiving 6 sessions over the course of a few days, and it was pretty intense. I wouldn't. Yeah, it was intense, but it was really awesome, and she's a wealth of knowledge, and I feel like she's really, she practices what she preaches, and what I like about her, she's super down to earth too. So she's got like the sciencey aspect going on, but also she's into the woo in a way that is it just works. So I really like, jumping on a call when I get the opportunity, or watching her interview. She does a ton of podcasts and interviews you can find online. She wrote 2 books that are also fascinating for anyone interested. But yeah, it's very interesting work. I find it to be very profound, and she's a cool woman.
I found her through, I say found her like I haven't talked to her before, but I found about her, or found out about her and biofield tuning through the Thunderbolts Project, the Electric Universe people. They were putting on a symposium. I want to say it was gotta been like 5 or 6 years ago. I'm not 100% sure. They had like Rupert Sheldrake was on there. They had a lot of interesting people. But all of these people in whatever field they were working on are basically on board with the idea that the entire universe is just alive with electricity for one, and who knows what else, but it's definitely not a vacuum. And it also speaks to us being, you know, multifaceted entities, whether it's, bioelectrical or whatever, if we're a part of the system in the universe. There was another guy on there, I forget his name. It was really interesting. I wanted to look into it a little bit more and I didn't get the chance. But basically, he asserted that the teeth are like circuit breakers in your body. And when you start removing teeth, and it usually, he says it starts with taking the wisdom teeth out, that things start going wrong in like the whole system. It's basically like pulling something out of the circuit board. I wish I had more information on it. I definitely don't, but it's like a cool idea. But some of the illnesses that he predicted would happen when you start taking like wisdom teeth out, or whatever tooth it was, like I was able to verify that, not just in myself, but like some of my clients. So because I'm a science dork, so I start testing it out on anybody who I have on the phone. Like, hey, do you have a couple minutes? Let me ask you some weird questions. And it was really cool. So there's definitely more to the body. I think going woo sometimes is probably not a bad thing. Like, let's start from a rational standpoint. And then it seems, if you're open-minded enough, if you don't go like strict, no, I'm drinking the science Kool-Aid, there's nothing outside of the mechanistic universe that we live in. It seems like a lot of people do start to look into the metaphysical side. I would think that's a natural progression. Maybe not, I don't know.
Yeah. And in Chinese medicine, the teeth, the different teeth are related to different organ systems as well. So you could say you have a problem with a certain tooth. They have a chart that you can look at, and it could be related to, say, your liver, or the spleen, or things like that. I believe also there's German New Medicine. That system will look at the teeth as related to different things. It's more of a psychosomatic thing. So having issues with your jaw or your teeth, say your molars, will have a certain correlation to, say, not being able um, to break down something coming in. It could be like a physical thing, but for most of us, it would be not able to, like, they'll call it a undigestible morsel or something. So it's like you're having a conflict with something that you just can't break down and sort out and digest, or something like that, and it'll come out physically in the molars of your teeth. Maybe the front teeth will be like where you first bite into something, so that would be considered a bite conflict, and that would be like you can't um, you're feeling like you can't attack someone in the way that you need to kind of get them out of your life. Or I don't know, I'm not exact on those, I'm just kind of summarizing. But that system is very interesting, also looking into the psychosomatic illnesses, because the idea is that when something happens, when a trauma happens in your life, if it's sudden and unexpected, it hits your psyche in a certain way. And the same thing that happens to 2 different people might hit them in a different way, the way that their brain interprets it. So for someone, it might be a conflict where they feel attacked, and for someone else it might be something where they're devaluing themselves, and both of those things will be kind of lodged in the brain and then come out, as you heal from that, come out psychosomatically, come out in your body as a certain illness. It's a very interesting modality to look at also.
Yeah, definitely. Friar, quiet over there.
No, you. So this all got me thinking about, I mean, we've touched on many things over the last hour and a half. And so Kat is dealing with frequencies. Electricity has various frequencies, right? We, in America land, we run our electricity at 60 hertz. But I think it's only America and maybe some countries in Asia that do that. So it is possible that part of the effect of going to Europe and feeling better, as I did when I went to Sweden, I was like, this place is just chill. It could have to do something with the fact that it's not running on 60 hertz, which would.
Well, what's ours running on? I know we do, you guys are all on 120 and we're all 210 over here. Does that affect the hurt you guys? I'm so tired. I don't know if you could tell. What is it?
That's the voltage.
Yeah, that's the volts. How many hertz? I'm Googling if you guys didn't know.
Do
How
the
many
Googles.
hertz?
But my overall point was, if Kat is able to affect the electrical runnings of the body, it could have to do with the fact that she is introducing positive, like reinforcing frequencies or better harmonics or something along those lines. Since we are absolutely electric.
It says 50 hertz in Europe. I don't know. I mean, maybe that has something to do with it. I know the internet is like way stronger here though. So I would think all of our 5G stuff is probably counteracting any of that.
Maybe.
So,
but I just was wondering about, people saying, oh, I feel so much better when I'm not in America land. And I have no doubt that the food probably has.
The food's a major part of it, for sure.
And also, well, a hell of a lot of things. But I was wondering if our choice of electric frequency is not the best. Even though, obviously we did it first, America, but maybe there are better ways to do it. Although I imagine replacing the whole of the electric infrastructure in America is not something that's going to happen anytime soon, if ever. Anyway, those are just my ramblings, my words.
No, it's an interesting theory. That hadn't occurred to me. I know about the like Wi-Fi stuff. I know like don't live under the power lines. Like I'm sure you guys have been under power lines and been like, it's like it makes you feel all frazzled and whacked out. So.
Yeah, it's funny, not far from here, we have like the big transmission lines that are going through on the big, tree looking things. And they so wisely built condos. Like they cut away, a lot of the forests and they put those things there. And it's kind of a no-go zone. Like, so they just, the city in its infinite wisdom decided this would be a great place for condos. And they're condos for poor people, basically. So,
yeah, of course they are. Because people have known since like the 50s or 60s, like don't play, let your kids grow up under power lines.
Right.
Like the big ones, obviously, I'm sure like everybody's got little ones by their house and stuff. So yeah, that has to have an effect.
I'll send you a picture. You'll be like, I can't believe this.
They have some like that here, but they're not actively trying to. It doesn't seem like the power lines might have been moved after the buildings were there. It's that type of thing. It's old. It's hard to tell. And they probably, built a lot of stuff in the 40s. So
well, having lived here since the 90s, I can assure you that the power lines were here first.
I believe you 100%.
Great.
Speaking of weird stuff affecting people, let's take a look at the sky today. It's not going to be super interesting because we have like it's a lot of the same stuff from before, but let's go ahead and knock this out. Stand by.
Okay.
Share the screen. Let's do this one and let me double check my date here. Where are we? This is today, right? What's today, you guys?
What is today?
25th. Yep, that's today. All right, awesome. So as you can see, everything is still pretty much here in Virgo, which makes this a great day to be talking about wellness and health and everything. Because in my experience, Virgo is not just the, what do you call this, a wealth constellation, but also health. This is the Mother Earth. Virgo, originally this was the furrow in the front, and they kind of just converged into one giant constellation. Obviously, the actual Earth is a representation of our own physical bodies. I'm sure anybody out there who's put the time into it, and this goes back to maybe Chinese medicine thing too, like the concept of your health and wealth being very much intertwined with each other. I find that demonstrates itself in the tantric system as well. So, and I've seen the pattern throughout astrologically, but with all of this going on, this is obviously a great time to work on any type of physical healing, financial healing too, if you want to. But like I said, those things are very much intertwined. So if you put energy into the one, you start taking care of your body, you'll probably notice your finances are a little bit better, and vice versa. We do have right now, and this is going to be for the next few days, we're going to have this tight conjunction with Mercury and the Sun. Obviously, if you go outside and you try to see Mercury, which I'm sure nobody's really doing, you're not going to be able to see that. That's okay. This is actually, so when Mercury and the Sun are far apart, they tend to, Mercury tends to make our minds much more logical and rational, which isn't always a good thing. Sometimes it's good to just trust your intuition, right? Just quit overthinking stuff. Now, if you're learning, that's a really good placement for you to have. But right now, the Sun, like it does with everything, the Sun's going to soften things. He's going to be, I know Sheriff Utu, he's going to come in, he's going to kind of calm things down. If you go and you look him up, Utu or Shamash, they're going to tell you that he's the god of law and justice. But if you actually read his myths, he's not doing that. I mean, sure, he probably is on some level, but mostly he's guiding, he's protecting, and he's talking his sister Venus off the ledge and keeping her from doing crazy stuff. He's like, she's a sensitive female. She has her days, and like he's trying to make sure she doesn't go on any rampages, right? So the Sun being close to Mercury, the Sun ends up taking on a little bit more of that cognitive energy, but at the same time, it's going to soften Mercury. So it allows us to bring in more intuition, more empathy into our minds, in our intellectual processes, which generally is a good thing. And again, you want to use this to work on anytime we have a lot going on in Virgo, you want to take advantage of those health, wealth energies. Venus is already transiting into Libra. I would technically call this like she's already in Libra at this point when she's this far south, or excuse me, east, I guess, of Spica. She's getting more into like the relationships into the tribe. So in Mesopotamia, Libra was the scales, or where the scale Libra was, yes, singular, the scales of, or claws of the scorpion. And they were all related to the marketplace. And this on the surface sounds like it's all just financial transactions, but when you get right down to it, this was social interactions. So the marketplace is where you went and you saw your neighbors and you bought and sold your wares, and you got that energetic connection with your tribe members, or your town or your village or whatever it was. So it tends to, there is a social element, admittedly, to Libra, but it's not so much about trying to find a balance. It's much more just, it's more of a survival. We're social creatures. We're hardwired for it. So it's more about getting that social interaction. Now, if you're an entrepreneur, or you work with the public, or, you tend to spend more time out in the environment, this is going to improve some of those relationships. Now, if you have a negative relationship in one of these areas, I suspect Venus over the next month, she's going to be forcing you to kind of lance some of those wounds. So in that case, it could be a little bit trickier for you. Don't fight it. If you have a toxic relationship and you feel like it's festering, just deal with it now so you don't have to deal with it later, right? What else do we have going on? Now, the moon's going through like this whole portion of the sky over the next week, so we're not going to focus too much on that right now. But Mars here in Gemini, which it has been in Gemini for the last week or so, this is also going to stimulate more of that intimacy within your empathic connections. Now, if you, again, are in a relationship and the relationship itself is toxic, or you're having trouble, this can force you to have to deal with some of this stuff. Also, if someone has a weird Mars placement, so in my case, like this, it's not really a weird placement, but my Mars is basically in opposition to this Gemini Mars. That can do certain things to you too. Now, it's going to depend on your natal chart. In my case, it tends to be making me much more relaxed, feeling much more peaceful. But if your Mars is placed differently, this could actually create some issues. You may notice some cardiovascular issues, immune system issues that kind of pop up. These things are calling on you to deal with them. Okay. So 90% of the time, you guys, okay, and I have a wide range of clients from different ages and backgrounds and countries. It doesn't seem to matter. People whose lives are, you know, by the time they hit 50, 60, 70, they're doing okay at that point. It's probably because they figured out that they need to deal with this stuff early on. The people who reach that point and they're still miserable and their lives are falling apart, they don't have any money, they're super sick, they're getting told the same thing over and over again, and they're not taking the hint. And then it's incumbent upon me to tell them, like, hey, this is your chart's trying to tell you to get rid of these assholes, right? Or to quit eating the grains, and that will show up in the chart, by the way. So if you're having problems right now, it's time to address them, right? I think that's probably good advice for, you know, generally everybody. That's pretty much everything going on. Friar, what nightmarish scenarios are we being told via the YouTube algorithm
So
right
many.
now?
So many.
You
I'm
want
going
to
to
bring
share.
those up for us?
Yeah, I'm going to share the screen here.
Okay.
Yes, desktop 2. Nope, Google Chrome.
Okay, while he's digging that out real quick, I was gone for a few minutes. My daughter has a fever. She has a cough. She's had a fever on and off for the last few days, but she's getting like little itchy bumps on her. She's had a fever for like a week. It's not like all of a sudden the fever is connected to this. In the back of my mind, I want to say it's just like they're not red. They literally look like she rubbed some, if she was allergic to an animal, which she's not, she like rubbed something on her in various places. Is that not something that comes along with a fever sometimes, is like itchy bumps? Like, does that sound familiar to you?
Would you say it's hives?
No, because they're like you can barely even see them.
Okay.
It seems like something like I'm digging in my repertoire of definitely not real medical knowledge and just, you know, in my tired state here, like trying to pull this out. That seems like something that happens. Does that sound familiar?
I mean, I don't know if it's just from hearing you say that, but because I don't have a specific example of that happening in my mind, but it does sound like something that that I've heard in some way, or it can something
Okay.
together. I mean, I wouldn't at this point, I wouldn't totally freak out about it, and see kind of what it does over the course of the next day or two. It's most likely going to work itself out. It's probably something that her body's clearly dealing with something if she's got a fever for a few days, and maybe just trying to get something out. It's like, you know,
that's kind of the sense that I got.
brain a little bit to try and her body, like raising the temperature to kind of get some stuff out. So I feel like there can be a relation there. Like some stuff is, I mean, our skin is our biggest organ. That's where we get rid of a lot of things. So it could just be something coming out that needs to come out. Keep an eye on it. And
it just happened when I was on the call. So like it's new, but I gave her some calamine lotion. Just let her knock yourself out.
Yeah. I'd say just some supportive care and see how it goes from here. But
I made the mistake of letting my husband, he's sick too, letting him take her to the doctor this morning, or yesterday. And they're like, oh, sounds like she has pneumonia. Take her to get a chest x-ray. You got to buy all these drugs. So they did the chest x-ray and drew her blood for some reason. I don't know. Of course she doesn't have pneumonia. I try to tell them, like, they don't listen to me. Like, okay. But yeah, we'll give it a couple days and see what happens. But thank you. I appreciate
it. If you want to share anything else about what's going on, just email me.
Okay. All right. What do you got for us, Friar?
Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
All right. So it looks like we have October's hidden danger.
Oh God.
What you need to know now, Joni Petrie is going to tell us with her very bright and shiny.
Is she the one with the Southern accent? Like it's real, like Dolly Parton accent or something?
I don't consider it that strong. She's from Dallas. It's sort of a,
well, to my sensitive Michigan ears, it
That's right.
sounds like a heavy, it sounds
Yeah.
like a very heavy accent.
You and Ted
Okay.
Nugent would think she was Southern.
Okay.
Right. So she's got, obviously, there's an uproar going on here. We got a red flag, the communist takeover of America continues,
Okay.
obviously.
Yeah.
But just below that, we got Pisces, a new era bursts open for Pisces.
Well, that
which is-
sounds kind of gross. Do
It's,
we need,
yeah, it's like
do we need napkins? Do we need,
a dermatologist, perhaps. But she's in a net, so I think that's a nice tie-in.
Okay.
It is a nice
is that
tie-in.
her? Did she take a photo shoot for it?
Presumably Annie Botticelli, molto bene.
Okay.
Per sicuro.
Fettuccine. Okay.
Yeah. All right. What else? Oh yeah, here we go. Dangerous time coming. Danger. Donald Trump's astrology chart exposed.
Oh,
That's
God.
another Joni Petrie. Look at her
Okay.
go.
Hey, she's crushing it. We can't
No, yeah. Hey,
we
she's
can't talk this smack. She's getting the views, eh?
she's making bank and she can afford those
That's right.
Dallas hairdressers. Let's see. Libra and eclipse seasons in full effect. None of this half.
What's going on in Libra? Oh, maybe Venus isn't in ish.
I
No,
don't
she says the
know.
22 to the 28th. That's like already right now, and Venus is technically still in Virgo.
Well, you're getting both barrels. Telling you now.
Someone needs to let her know.
Yeah, well, you could. Let's see. Ooh, this is Revealing Light, Tarot, Astrology, and Spirituality. And yet her title is purely mundane. Voter roll purges Georgia, another assassination attempt, North Carolina, and P. Diddy. No, let's keep that fella out of here.
How would we be able to verify any of that stuff? Like, is she, it's interesting to me. Like, how would you know? Oh, she might be, well, you said if she's doing tarot, it could be that
Yeah,
too.
it's all in the cards. This is what YouTube gives me. All signs, shocking changes in the upcoming astrology. Things look different.
Okay, well, that's mild.
Yeah, we got more Joni.
Things look different. Things are looking a little
things
different.
are looking different. Joni's just all over the shorts here.
That's how you do it, Friar. If we were on top of our shit, we would have a ton of these too.
If we were YouTubers, we would just happen.
Hey,
this will happen.
speaking of, wait, hold
Yes.
on, time out before I forget, because my brain's already like shutting down, you guys.
Okay.
YouTube's got this thing. I don't think they had it before. I think they got rid of Google Podcasts and now they're migrating it all to YouTube somehow. But YouTube let me take our playlist from the live streams and turn it into a podcast, which I found the RSS feed link. It's really hard to figure out but so it's like it does show up like a podcast. You could technically, syndicate it and whatnot if you wanted to. But it's like made me make a thumbnail. Okay. And I need to ask you this. So what we end up talking about most of the time is obviously astrology, magic, various mysteries of the universe, and more. So I put the title of it, and I've been doing this the last few weeks of the live stream, like whatever weekly forecast, and then myth, magic, and more, or myth, magic, mysteries, and more. So here's my question to you, okay? Because that seems that's about what we talk about, right? And there's a lot of M's, and I think that's fine. How do you feel about the K in magic? Because I'm not a fan. To me, that screams Wicca, and I feel like that puts a lot of people off. Do you have do you put the K in magic, Friar?
I do.
Okay. Where does this come from?
Potassium, obviously.
But yes, but like from a historical standpoint, like why do we stick?
This was a differentiation. I believe it was Crowley that did this. He wanted to differentiate between like illusionists, like stage magic, versus like lodge magic or thaumaturgy, or however you want to.
Okay, so
that was
Crowley.
Which is fine. I mean, he's done much worse. So
yes, this was definitely one of more of his innocuous changes that he's made to the world.
Yeah. So I go with it because
are you okay without it?
It would be a disaster. OMG.
And here's the other thing. I need to check the stats on this. I need to see if magic with a K, like how that trends and what the search volume is for it and stuff. So I'll look into it. I just wanted your input on it though.
also whoever, like, you could maybe see what kind of people, or maybe the titles that come up. You can do a Google search, M.A.G.I.C.K, and then what follows, like magic is of the devil, magic is super cool, magic is for my pet. I mean, whatever.
Yeah, that's probably true. I'll dig around. I'll see what I can come up with.
Yeah. So I
Okay.
mean, it's your channel. It's okay.
Yeah, but it's a group, it's a team effort here, okay?
Yes.
And you're
team-
our resident magical expert, so you
Oh.
have more of a say.
Aren't you in
Yeah.
trouble?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna like throw a large tantrum over it.
I didn't even think about it until yesterday when I was making the thumbnail, and I'm like, oh, wait a second.
Okay.
This might
Look,
not be the right spelling that I want to use. So
all I'm trying to do is use YouTube to figure out how much danger we're in. Okay.
you mean right now?
Obviously.
Yes, let's go back to that.
Yeah.
Let's go back to that. What else we got?
We got this will happen in the next 24 hours. And
Oh my God. Was that 24 hours ago? It was 22 hours ago. We have 2 hours.
We got 2 hours and this is gonna happen. So the thing will happen. We got Leo October monthly. That's pretty innocuous. Although that's a sporty hat, I must admit.
Does she know we're still in Virgo now, or we're in Virgo now? Leo.
One wonders.
I don't know what's going on. I'm so confused.
That was 1 day ago. A lot can change in a day.
Did you guys see? You guys saw the forecast? I just pulled it up. Everything's in Virgo, right? Did I hallucinate that whole thing?
Probably.
Okay.
You know, reality's weird. So this lady appears to be also stuck in a transporter malfunction. So I might meet her. I don't know.
Okay.
3 things you must do for abundance in life. Mars in the ninth. Mars the ninth house in Leo. We got some palmistry.
Mars isn't in Leo. I just want to go through on everyone and be like, Mars isn't in Leo.
That's
Like, look at this
KRS. That's a Vedic guy. What's going on? Palmistry, Gemini. She's still got the hat. She's just reusing,
Okay.
whatever. New beginnings and shocking revelations in the October horoscope. All signs, spooky ghosts, bats.
Yeah.
It's all happening at Willow Grace Astrology. Astrology for the soul. It's very good. Ooh, the most life-changing week. Most life-changing week.
Gateway, some kind of eclipse gateway. There's an eclipse gateway now.
Yes.
Okay.
We have to keep up.
I know.
This is just, that's a lot going on. Ongoing rare kite, Earth Grand Trine, Libra Equinox portal. Gee whiz. Who knew? Joni's back. With her shiny lower teeth.
Attack on World Leaders.
Yeah, Attack on World Leaders. October is coming.
Yes, October is coming.
It is coming, and that's a rock solid prediction. I'm going to stand behind that one.
I'm with her on that. That is happening.
So now you have found an astrologer who's made a prediction.
Yeah, it was a good one too. It was the best one so far.
This is pretty generic. All signs. This hat lady back again. Palmistry.
Yeah.
There's probably one more really good disaster. The person you love is about to message you. Wow.
Okay.
Independent queens, 4 zodiac women who don't need a man. That was 2 days ago.
Okay.
Anything else? We're getting into the Jyotish kids.
Yeah.
And there's probably I'll find another one. It's got to be really devastating.
A spooky
one. Here we go. These zodiacs are lethal.
Where? Which one is that?
This one right here.
With the cartoon picture?
With the cartoon picture.
Okay. Like, are they more likely to be serial killers or something?
Probably. Kat knows all about that.
Yeah.
So
okay, yeah. I'm reading, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
They can't stop thinking about you. Let's all agree that that's evil. When people use astrology or tarot to like reach people who are out there, like suffering and about a relationship, because they know that they're gonna go online and they're gonna look for things that are confirming what they want to hear. I know because these people come to me in readings and are like, well, I followed this person, this tarot reader, and everything she said just really resonated with me, and it's all like positive about how you want your ex-boyfriend to come back,
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily what's going on. So I'm not a super big fan of some of those.
That blows. I was going to do a second channel. I was just going to focus on like love, money, and health and disaster messages about those things. It's just going to be great, but forget
Are
it.
you really?
No,
Oh, okay. I'm like, oh, that's yeah, like I just got done saying.
you blew my plans.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is all getting all Joe to she, which is fine.
It's
But
interesting they don't put that up at the top. I would imagine a lot of those have way more views, but I mean, I can't see it from here, but
yeah, it's
no, you don't.
kind of mid views. You will
Okay.
find your forever person.
Oh, let's see. Yeah, that's good.
Very important. Is this you? Is this you?
It's not.
No?
Which one is
Okay.
it? What was the card?
That would be the Two of Pentacles.
Okay, so I don't know. I don't know if
So,
it's me or not.
probably
I'm
you.
gonna say it's not.
Yeah, so yeah.
Oh, is
The,
Pat still on? Pat, are you over there?
I
Did
don't
you
know.
jump off?
I'm still here.
Pat,
Pat,
first of all, guys, I gotta go in a few minutes, but Pat, I gotta ask you thoughts on Sadhguru.
Oh my gosh, really?
ooh,
Just like I thought we were going to talk about like what we were just talking about.
Nope.
no, she got you.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you earlier, but I'm like, no, I gotta wait for Dr. Paula to,
Yeah, yeah.
give us all the info.
Um, so my thoughts, keeping in mind we are public. Um,
You don't got to worry about it. I mean, unless you're worried somebody's gonna come for you.
yeah, it's not like that. Like just me saying that alone already created a certain kind of thing. So it is what it is. Um, yeah, overall, I personally had a very beneficial experience going through, everything at Isha Yoga. Uh, Obviously, there were a lot of difficulties because healing and spiritual growth doesn't happen with like rainbows and sunshine all the time. So, having said that, like, yeah, I did like almost a whole year inside the ashram between India and in America. And they're two very different ashrams. They're run very, very differently because of the culture. When you're in India, it's a whole thing. It's so much bigger and grander over there. Over here, it's toned down, and I think a lot of that's because of Americans. And if it were to be so like overflowing, it would push a lot of people away. But I got in 6 years ago before he blew up into this big, like kind of icon in India. He really is now. Um, I'll say this, like the stuff that I use, the practices that he gave me, I'm not really using them a whole lot anymore. It was a very specific style of yoga called Kriya Yoga. And so you're just kind of like blasting the energy in the system and like really amping the energies in the system. It's not necessarily a great thing to do that if you have blockages and you have certain traumas, um, because I think the attitude is you're just going to kind of like break through them in a very forceful way. And I know a lot of people that it hasn't given them a lot of benefits. So one in particular, my brother, who like, he almost died, like not because of the practices, but because of a lot of other things, and the practices like really made it worse. So the systems and that can work, but I think you need to spend some time like cleaning the system out to get the maximum benefits. I happen to do all that. That's why I'm saying like it's just everything lined up with me perfectly because I have been doing healing. I have been doing like detoxing on a deep level for years coming into that. So like I got pressed higher and it took me somewhere, but then eventually it wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough. And I had to go beyond that. And I still do some of the pranayamas and the breathing because last year when I went and did a 21-day water fast, when they were taking my vitals, my resting heart rate was like 40 to 42. And they were like, "Are you a long distance runner?" And I'm like, "No, I just do a lot of pranayama." And so I think like getting in touch with the breath and connecting it deeply with the mind and like all that, I think that was the bigger things that I got out of it to get me more in touch with my body because I'm very mental, can be very emotional in a way, but like grounding it's been really difficult for me. So it gave me that. And then having said anything on the systems, when it comes to Sadhguru, yeah, I have my misgivings about how he interacts with certain people in the world. And I do question, like, I do genuinely question the deeper motives of what the movement really is, because I've just seen some things personally, and I've had energy experiences with Sadhguru, that I had to make the decision to like energetically disconnect completely from Sadhguru, the organization, and all that in my furthering my quest into what I'm doing spiritually.
That is so interesting. So you've like interacted with him, like
Not per
personally?
So
Just
here's what I'll say about it. Here's what I'll say about it. I opened up, let's say it this way, I opened up a portal or a space or an energy to allow him to come in a certain way. And over the years, he has manifested his essence and his self mostly in dream states, but almost every one of them being lucid. And when I made a personal decision to disconnect myself and do some rituals, which I literally just did these rituals 2 weeks ago. Like I literally just did these rituals 2 weeks ago. But I did some rituals to disconnect the energies and all that. And literally the very night after I did all that, like he showed up in a dream, and there was a very specific act that happened that really, I knew I was making the right decision, and I knew he gave me what I needed though. Like he'll tell you, like, he's just a black hole. Like he's literally empty, and there's a certain element of like agendas that I don't want to be wrapped up in someone else's agenda when I don't really know where he's going with it. He says he's going one direction, but I just see a lot of other things happening around him that just make me want to like he was super into the vax. I'm so sorry, but like he was so into it. And I sat there at the darshan in person when he told everybody go get the vaccine, and I was one of two people sitting in an audience of like 500 maybe. And me and my brother didn't have a mask on. We were the only ones. Me, my brother, and Sadhguru were the only ones with no masks on. And he's sitting there telling everybody to get a shot. And it was just like, that was my time. That was years ago. And that's when I started like, all right, I'm done. Like I'm done with these guys. So yeah, it's just too many unknowns. So I got what I got out of it. And I'm absolutely thankful for every bit of it. I still talk to the three men that I shared a dorm with, because we've dormed up for the volunteer process. The three men that I went through that with, we still meet regularly, practically every Thursday on a Zoom chat. They're my brothers till the end. And one of them is very, very, very close to me. And literally we've made connections into our past lives and other lives. Like it's crazy. Like so I found them there. So like there's a whole bunch of good stuff here. But yeah, Sadhguru ultimately, if it resonates with you, go do it. Absolutely go do it, because he doesn't want you to be wrapped up in him, at least in everything that I've come to learn. He really is a guru in a certain kind of way where he wants you to like get beyond him. And so everything that I did, and like I just said 2 weeks ago, I like disconnected. The dream that I had, it was so, all of that was literally, he was for me to go beyond, and he acknowledged it and everything. And like, it was good. It was good. So
okay.
it's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword when you get involved with people at a guru level, a disciple level. So yeah, be careful.
Yes, that's true. Do you hear that he murdered his wife?
Yeah, I know the whole story. I know 2 or 3 different versions of it. Here's the problem with, so the whole thing with his wife. I had an experience in the ashram where his wife, well, not where she died, but right near it. The thing about that is, based on all of the stories, it happened in open. It happened in front of a bunch of people. So, and the story that I heard, the thing is I had heard about dropping your body before me or going through Isha. Like I had come into the yogic knowledge in my 20s about when you're ready or when you want to, like you walk out. Like a lot of people who become enlightened, whatever that is, they don't want to be here anymore. Like I've raised my energies. I brought my consciousness into a certain state. I don't want to stay here. So you just drop the body and leave. And that wasn't like weird to me when I heard this story, because I don't know how much you know of it or what version of it you got, but putting it all together, she died in the middle of a meditation that she had prepared for about a year and a half. And he didn't believe, okay, here's the story. The fuller story that probably isn't out in the public. I don't know if it's in the public. I heard this inside, but he met, and I don't remember his name, but he met this really famous yogi in India, and he was practically like considered a saint. He would only eat fruit that fell off a tree. He wouldn't pick from a tree. He wouldn't take from nature. He would only eat what nature gave him that fell off of a tree. So this guy was, I think, in his 70s or 80s, and he was ready to leave on his own. And Sadhguru met him and taught him how to leave the body. And his wife was sitting right there with him the whole time. When they got in the car, she looked at him and said, I want to leave that way. I don't want to leave like, whenever my body's, ragged or this, or that. Like, I want to choose when I want to leave. And you just taught him how to do it. I want to learn how to do this. And he didn't believe her. And he was like, yeah, right, whatever. She wouldn't give it up. And after like a couple of days, he's like, okay, here's a simple sadhana, which is a practice. Here's a simple sadhana to do. And she started fervently doing it with a vigor that he'd never seen, because she didn't care about yoga. She didn't care about any of his organization. The way that he describes the relationship and others that talk about it, she was like so devoted to him, like just to him, like that was her life. So anyways, she winds up doing it for like a year and a half. And then there was an astrological alignment that day. They sat in meditation with about 8 of them. It was like 8 or 10 of them that were sitting together. And after sitting down for like less than 3 to 5 minutes, someone got up. Sadhguru opened his eyes because he couldn't believe somebody would get up after they started meditating. And he saw it was his wife. He got a little like, what's she doing? She came back, sat down. He didn't pay attention. And about 30 to 45 minutes later, they heard a big thump. And whenever everybody opened their eyes, all of her jewelry was off of her. She went to the bathroom to take all her jewelry that was holding her and grounding her in the body off. And she slumped over, died. Now, here's where it gets crazy, is because they basically burned the body really, really quickly in accordance with, honestly, Hindu culture.
Not within an hour and a half. That's not normal.
I agree there. That's where I agree there. And that's where it's like, okay, that's where the story stops. Now, the area she died in, you can't get very close to it anymore, but I got as close as I could get. And not to say that this means anything in particular, but it was my experience that I had. There is a flower essence smell that is just hanging out right there. And yeah, I don't know, because I think honestly, Sadhguru originally was a businessman. He had a chicken farm. I know the chicken farm was a big one, but he had like 2 or 3 businesses. They didn't get going. And then he has this experience that I honestly believe he had. That's the crazy part. Like, this man, this being, he has a power in the body and an ability to access tools inside of it that I haven't met anyone that comes close to the feeling in the presence of him. He can move whole, and it's scary in some ways because it's like a cult, and it's like, like, what's going on here? He can move people's energies in extremely powerful ways. Even if he just walks into a room in some instances. And so it's a little, that's what I mean. Like, that's what drew me to it, was like, this guy knows stuff. Like, he truly knows stuff. I just think personally, I think he's using it a lot more for his own ends than necessarily for all of ours. But people are getting benefits. I can't knock that one bit. People are getting benefits.
Yeah.
So
They said
it's a mixed bag.
some of those things they said about Rasputin, a lot of different charismatic religious leaders, they do have some weird access to some powers, and you know, I don't dispute that that's the case. Now, I heard, now obviously you were in it,
Yeah.
so but I didn't hear that it happened in public.
Well, when I say public, they were all meditating in the temple, and there were like 6 or 7, 8 other people with him there. It was a group setting.
Okay.
And the group is the ones that witnessed it. And here's the thing, though, they're all disciples. So, like, to your someone else's point, could they all be in on it? 100% yes. But here's the thing about the accusations. The accusations were made by her family, her brother, I believe it was in particular, or her father. I can't remember. It was a male, though. One of them accused him of murdering her, like, pretty quickly about hearing it, because they also said that she wasn't really communicating with the family, and like, she was isolated or whatever, and basically was being accused of being a cult. And so the accusations came from the family that she wasn't in touch with. So it seems like it was a family thing to do, and there wasn't any evidence. That's the crazy part. Like, I'm a big law guy. I study law.
Right.
That's the other thing. Like, when you look at the facts and the evidence, everything looks kosher in India, because in India they do have a culture of people, yogis, dropping bodies.
Not when they have an 8-year-old daughter. That's not normal.
Well, see, here's the other thing, though. So his version of that is, he brought that up too. We have a daughter, and she basically said, from his words, obviously, but I feel at this time in my life like it cannot get any better. And the level of love that I have, and the placement of, like, everything that I'm in, it can't get any better. And I want to go out with this. You'll take care of our daughter. We have a whole community now, yada, yada, yada. And
I'll buy it. Mom's, I could get behind the rest of it, but from what I hear, and I didn't know her, obviously, she was a really good mom. She loved her daughter.
Yeah.
If I could understand if she's like a nut, and, already sucking at the parentage, but then you're probably not going to reach samadhi, in that state. But, there's no, every night when I go to sleep, my goal is to live as long as possible so that I can be here for my daughter, even if I'm like in my 80s or 90s, because, like, that's just a natural, like, we're all wired. A healthy female mom is going to want to do that, right? I don't buy it for a second. I also heard that they had been fighting, and he had a girlfriend at the time. Sadhguru did, and I think he's with her now. I don't know if they got married or not, because I don't follow it that closely. So seems a little fishy.
If he did, he kept that very, very secret, because I'll be honest, like, I haven't really paid attention to him in about 3 years. Basically, since COVID, I completely, like, stopped paying much attention at all. So I didn't, while I was in the ashram and outside of it, and all the people that I interacted with, because I got pretty close to the top when I was in America side. That never came up. I never knew he had any female, let's call it a consort or confidant or whatever. Like, I don't know what you want to call that, but that never came up. He was a single guy. He raised, I can't remember his daughter's name, raised her, got her to a point. She's involved in the organization.
Yeah.
Here's my thing. I didn't know about the fighting thing either. How would he have done it? Like, how does this get pulled off?
Well, I don't know. I was under the impression that it happened at home. I didn't know that it had happened in, like, a group environment. I mean, that's what people say where it happened. But yeah, I thought it was, like, at home. I had no idea. So I don't know. Like, there's too many variables. All I know is and having literally, I don't know. I know a lot of gurus. I've met a lot of gurus. I guarantee you, Pat, none of those motherfuckers are as happy as I am. Okay. So, like, to be as blissed out as me, and I haven't left my body just from being, like, on another level. So I just don't buy it. I don't buy it. And I think the most incriminating thing about it is that he had her body cremated within an hour and a half. Very specifically within an hour and a half. That's shady. That is creepy.
That was my biggest, I'm within it at the time, even hearing about it, but that was my biggest misgiving about it was like, like you said, it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
That's so shady. Here's my thing. I also, I did Kundalini yoga for years. Technically, I still do it periodically. I never got into like, the Kundalini cult or whatever. I wasn't that big into it, but I know one person in particular, one of my clients, she was pretty far in. And have you heard of like what happened with the Kundalini people in Yogi Bhajan?
No.
Well, he was a big perv.
No, Kundalini yoga is dangerous, but
he turned out to be like, did a lot of the assault,
Okay. Yeah.
One of those. So I remember having this conversation with my client, because she was devastated, that was like her family. To find out that, and they were keeping these secrets, as they do, as devotees, like they're in it to win it. Yes. And she's like, I don't understand though. How can this person have created, like, Kundalini yoga has been so powerful. Like, how can this horrible human being have created this like amazing system? Like, she couldn't reconcile these two things. And I told her, like, bad people could have good ideas. Like, you're not like, that's a real thing. We all have access to the source where we can, develop different technology, spiritual or otherwise. That doesn't make you a good or bad person. So like, you have to use those things in isolation. I know a lot of people who have gone through Sadhguru's various programs. I think he has a number of them, and they're like, this is amazing. The part that sucks about that, at least for me, and maybe for them, I don't know, maybe it hasn't showed up yet, is that they become a devotee. And I personally think, so this is my biggest issue with Hinduism, as a Hindu myself, is guru worship. I think that it is and it's so ingrained in the culture and everything, that it's really hard to explain to someone that once you give and I know the concept is you're not actually giving your power to another man, you're giving it to this vessel, who is, whoever, whatever avatar they are, right?
Yeah.
That you're not giving it to them, but that's not how it works. And human beings are, we're flawed by our nature. We're just wired to want money and sex and resources and power and influence. Like, that's our biology. That's how we evolved, and it serves us to an extent. It can definitely go crazy and go to dark, dark places. So when you give a normal human being that level of authority over you, I mean, you let some really messed up people. And the argument is, well, a real guru wouldn't have any of those things, but how many gurus are, how many of them end up being that way? Like, it happens in all the organizations. So I suspect I got bad vibes from Sadhguru the first second I laid eyes on that guy. To me now, I haven't sat through, any longer, I've listened to interviews, I've listened to, him talk and stuff. Seems like he's just spouting like
common sense.
No, like nonsense. To me, it sounds crazy. Like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? Now, he probably has good insights though, scattered in, and consider this. I am hyper analytical. I think we talked on the last call. We talked on the meditation call Sunday. My mom can't watch movies with me because I sit there and pick the movie apart, and I'm like, that wouldn't happen. That's not how science, So, some of that could just be me like over analyzing it, but he kind of rubs me the wrong way a little bit. I was involved with the ISKCON Krishna consciousness people for quite some time. And they got them in there too. They got their fucking pervs, and they're power hungry. They want the money, they want the influence, and the whatever. It's in every organization. Can't find one that's not. you
And
know?
the thing you were talking about with the guru relationship and like the power, like he'll tell you, and this is another thing that like turned me off, and it's not his fault per se, but like he can't stand his feet to be touched, which is a big thing in India with like holy people, basically. Like if you touch their feet, you're
That's
blessed.
really interesting.
Yeah, you're really blessed. You're blessed if you can just touch the feet of what's a realized being or a holy man. If you can just touch their feet, like your life will be blessed. That's the mentality of
And
Indians.
he won't let people touch his feet?
He won't, he cannot, he does not like it at all. He
Oh
doesn't
my
want you
God.
at all.
That's
And
crazy.
he also tells you, don't worship me. Like, do not worship. This isn't about me. He'll tell you that in the programs, but you'll watch everybody do just that. And that
Yes.
part of it was like really turning me off. But not so much that I was going to let it like interfere with me or my process.
Sure.
So eventually got through all that. But here's what I'll say about the energy relationship. When I came in there, I jumped into the deep end of a pool that I didn't even know I jumped into quite. And I get into the ashram and I got people like Sadhguru's my guru. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Because that concept to me was very foreign, even though I knew all about the relationships and that, like I never ever felt that about him. But my actions and things that I did created some type of field mechanical relationship between us, because this is what I'll say, because I know you got to go to. I had a ring I was wearing of his.
I'm all right. I rescheduled already.
Okay. Here's one of the reasons why, like, I know what he's doing from my perspective and what he did to me, in a way that I wasn't okay with. But I had been wearing this snake ring on my finger because when I got into these programs, I was being pushed out of my body. Okay. And then right after this started happening to me, I'm like, I need to do something. We watched this video and it's like, if you get pushed out of the body, put a ring on your ring finger on your left hand. And he said that the left ring finger is the most powerful finger. You can control the entire universe with this one finger if you know how to use it. Put a ring on it. And I thought immediately, like, wow, this is interesting with Western culture. We wear our rings on the left finger. So I went ahead and got a snake ring, and it was silver. It was a silver snake ring. I wore that for a few years, and I didn't have these experiences unless I took it off and really pressed my energies. So after wearing it for almost 3 years, I think it was, I went and got a test. I don't go see doctors. I was talking earlier, like I don't see doctors, but I went to a chiropractor 3 years ago. He ran a hair test and blood test, and I got a report on all the metals and all the crap in my hair. I was at the 99th percentile for silver oxide overdose. Here's the irony. My brother, who I came there with, my yogi brother, Jordan, he was at the 97th percentile. And the doctor saw both of us back to back and was like, what is going on here? Like, this guy in this other room's got the same thing. And I'm like, yeah, I came with him. He's like, you guys have an environmental toxin. And I said, no, it's right here on my finger. Literally the ring finger I was wearing, the ring I was wearing was poisoning me.
Oh my God.
And
Where did you get it?
well, Sadhguru, he sells it at the ashram.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I got turned off that first year also because I saw how much money was being made. Like I saw the business side of it because I was involved in administration. My background's finance. So like I was allowed to kind of get closer to some things, and they make a lot of money and they don't pay their taxes.
Yep. And people are pissed about it.
Yeah, so and I knew about all that when I got there. So anyways, I got this ring, it poisoned me. I took the ring off. The craziest thing happened though. For the next 3 years, up until about 2 weeks ago, I still was wearing a ring. Like I literally, because I'm energy sensitive, so like I literally could feel a ring on my finger for the last few years. And it took me a long time to figure out, like, is this like a thing that I want to get married? Because I'm single, you know what I mean? But like, am I trying to get married? If I want to get married, and that's what it's like, oh, you need to do this, like that. Eventually I figured out, no, this is the ring that I took off. It's still on me energetically. And so just a couple of weeks ago, I did the proper rituals to cleanse all that. And literally, I had a dream with him that night with a spiritual object that something happened to it, and that's all I'm going to say. And that morning, I woke up. I don't have the feeling anymore. It's no longer there, and I know we're disconnected now. So he's harvesting energy, and I don't know what he's doing it with. I don't know what he's doing with it. So he's not. He doesn't have mine anymore, and a few people that I know went through it. We've done. And here's the thing about Hinduism that you were mentioning. The irony about all this is I came to all these conclusions and made these choices. My yogi brother over there, Jordan, he came to these conclusions in a completely different way, using Christianity of all things. Because I was like, "What, dude? Like he went back to Christianity?" In the way that he did it, I was kind of surprised. Not anything against Christianity. But we started comparing notes because he got so deep into Christianity again as an adult. And we started comparing notes on the Hinduism things back and forth. And what we realized, talking to some people that have been working that are like exorcists, basically, and like demonologists and things, deliverance, that's what he's doing. That's what they're doing. These Hindu gods are very sticky. They're very, very sticky in your field, depending on how much you build up with them and how much you work with them. Because at the time I disconnected from Sadhguru, I was starting to work with Hanuman. And everything in the field was telling me to do this. And the closer I got to it, the more there was something else that was like challenging this that I was bringing, even though I was bringing it. And I came to the conclusion like, oh my gosh, I'm not supposed to be working at this like lower level, if you will, with these entities anymore. I need to move up, so to speak. And Sadhguru was in the way. And my brother had the same things, and he came to me with the same Hindu stuff. And he's like, these lesser gods basically they get very, when they start to get attention and energy, they get very needy and they get very codependent on the relationship, and they can mess with your life. Because here's what I'll say last about this. Probably not, but I'll try. I went through every program they offered that I could go through that was available at the time to the public. And when I say that, because there was some special programs that happened prior to me that were one-off programs, but anything you can do now, I went through it. The only thing I didn't do is like Hatha Yoga School, which is 6 months and like 10 grand. No thanks. The last program I did is their peak program or their top program called Samyama. And it's like a 8-day silence program, total silence, all white. That program is got to be one of the most dangerous things you can do or put yourself into, because every single person that I know that went through it got, for lack of a better term, destroyed. Personally, after I came back from that program and I got back from India, I sat at my mom's house for almost a year staring at the wall. Like, and I that's not exactly what I did, but that's pretty much what I did, because you go so close to the edge of death using the breath that it like just scrambles, and it just messes your all your bodies, all your 5 bodies, 7 bodies, however many you think you got. It messes all of them up. It scrambles all of them to such a degree that it took almost a year to like put Humpty Bumpty back together. And I just meditated. That's the thing. My mom literally came in my room one time and she's like, I'm worried about you. You're staring at walls. And I was just doing meditation. I was doing a lot of meditation. But in the end, it hit me. I'm like, all these programs and stuff, they just take me out of life in a certain kind of way. And I'm not doing anything really. You know what I mean? I'm learning to be, or I'm connecting with my being. But there's a certain level of these programs where they kind of like sideline you from life in a certain kind of way. They take you away from actually living life, because they're this little bubble of bullshit, like, in its own way. I was shocked when I ran into politics and the same corporate mentality that I dealt with at the corporate world when I left it to come to an ashram, it was the same mentality. And I'm like, wait a second, I thought this was a spiritual organization and that we're like thinking things differently. No, 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 no. When it comes down to it, like we're going to do the same things that the world does. Yeah, it's a very, if it draws you to it though, I highly recommend experiencing it, but be careful, like be very, very mindful why you're
So
there.
I don't know. Can't speak to the programs in particular, but I guarantee you there are elements of that are designed to foster mind control. I think the vegetarian diet in itself is
Agreed.
a part of that.
Agreed.
So,
Especially
but I
for
don't,
women.
yeah, and I don't know how much of that is intentional or it's just kind of a side effect or it's just something that some of these gurus and these programs naturally design you to do. As far as like sticky Hindu gods, I haven't had that problem, but I also don't get wrapped up in some of our smaller deities,
Mhm.
so like so I don't know. I know I felt like I love Krishna and Vishnu. Like I've had powerful experiences with them. But Vaishnavism in general is not, I don't know, it's something about it seems very, and I don't know, I think I don't Sadhguru, like the Isha organization, they're Shiva Hindus, right? Aren't they?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, it's late here, so I'm dumb.
Well,
Like my brain's not working. Huh?
technically, here's the irony of the situation. Technically, they're not like they're registered as non-religious because they're not Hindu. He goes to great lengths to separate, especially in India, he goes to great lengths to try to separate his system from Hinduism and just talk about it as pure yoga and the original, like what are the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali. He tries to use that, like there's no gods, there's no any of that. It's just the
Interesting.
processes, the asanas, the kriyas, and like everything else is off to the side, is how he
Okay.
tries to talk about it.
Okay,
But
that's
I
interesting.
don't, but the thing is that's because I think ultimately, like he's the god, but he's Shiva. Like ultimately it's through Shiva, everything's Shiva, Shiva, Shiva. And that's ultimately where all the energy is getting, moved towards or pulled towards or how you look at that. But
Well, don't it would be cool to have your friend on if that's ever something he'd be
oh
interested
yeah,
in
no,
talking
he'd
about.
totally be open to it. Because it's funny, we're just like he's just going through some stuff, whatever, coming on the other side of it. I literally on the equinox, funny enough, we're having this conversation. On the equinox, I did like 3 rituals on the equinox, and I actually finished off the Sadhguru stuff with burning all of the cotton, any of the consecrated cotton or any of the cotton stuff. Wound up burning all of that finally on the equinox. So yeah, it's a very yeah, it's and the thing that blew my mind is Jordan worked in the kitchen. He was in the kitchen because that's what his background was. And when we found out about the food quality and the way things were done, it was just it just was just kind of like we were being fed poison in a roundabout way. Like there were a lot of things that were like basic things you'd think that a spiritual organization would be aware of in America, especially because most of the Indians in the ashram in America are Americans. It's very hard to get a visa for an Indian to come over and just be in the ashram. You know what I mean? As a worker,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
have to be American Indians. But yeah, there's just the food quality is very low. And when I was in India, I wouldn't eat the food over there. Because here's the funny thing. When I was in the ashram, the food quality was so bad. And my diet was dialed in so good coming into there that when I got there, I'm like, I'm taking a step backwards. Even being vegetarian, I was taking a step backwards. I'm like, wait a second. So I was buying me and Jordan, we were buying our own food. We were buying a lot of our own food on top of that. When I got to India, I wouldn't eat the food. And then I got through the program and then I tried the food for the first time. The Indian food was amazing. Like the energy of that food was outstanding. Like it's the same stuff you'd eat over in America, call back to our earlier conversation. It's the same stuff you eat over
They
there.
don't do prasad?
They do. Oh, I'll say this. The prasad is way up there.
Okay.
I actually, and this is the thing. I bought a Devi yantra. It's called hold up. It's not a Devi yantra. It's a different name, but it's a type of Devi yantra. But I had a Indian friend. I'm still close with him, and he started teaching me about offering this to this deity, basically. And I'll tell you what, I'm a skeptic. Like, I go into things like wholeheartedly, but skeptically, and just to see what happens a lot of times. I went into that, and we put out like cookies, and we put out these cookies, and then we left them there, and they sat there for like 2 or 3 days. And I asked my buddy, I'm like, hey, when can we eat these? And he was like, oh, we could have ate them after a few hours. They don't need to be up there very long. And I'm like, oh, you didn't tell me. We went to go eat these cookies. They had been sitting out for 3 days. They tasted fresh. They weren't stale. And they were so like, they made you giddy. They literally made you giddy. And I was like, whoa, what's going on? And he's like, dude, the essence of the deity is eating the cookies. It's in the cookie, like you're eating the essence. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
Didn't stop to think about maybe I shouldn't do this. I just kept doing it because it gives you that great feeling.
Why wouldn't you do it? Okay, wait, hold on. This is such a much bigger conversation. Do me a favor. Let's wrap this up for today, but let's continue this conversation because I have so many questions from like a curiosity standpoint, but I'd also like to talk to you if your friend is ever interested, like let's get your friend on too. Because you've only been on a couple of the live streams, but we've gone into like a great depth about Christianity, the Bible, like all kinds of stuff. Like we can definitely integrate those two topics and all in one call. I'd love to hear how your friend, I know some people who have, gone back and forth between Hindu and Buddhism and Christianity and stuff. So it'd be cool to have that conversation, but we probably should wrap it up. Everybody out there, Pranapat's information, if it's not in the chat, I can put it in there. I don't know if you ever sent me like an official.
It's so funny. I just started building the site last week.
Okay.
So it is coming online.
Well, if you have it, that's no problem. If you have an email or anything, I can stick that in the notes too. If you want, like, just let me know now. Give me the go ahead, and I have your email, and I can pop that in there.
I'll give you the email for the website so it goes through over there.
That works. All my information, Kat's information, Dr. Paula's information, and Friar's information are all in the video description. If you guys have any questions or comments, or just be a human being and reach out to us and like make a human connection. Like there's not enough of that going around. So like definitely feel free to do that. And otherwise it was great. Thank you everybody who is here and asked questions or watched or stuck it out. Like, share, subscribe. And that's probably good. You guys good for today?
Yes. Thank you to the chat, the folks who stuck around and asked questions. Much appreciated.
All right. Well, you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.
Have a good night.